I always thought the quiet hours were the safest part of the shift. People imagine a 911 dispatch center as a constant flood of screams, chaos, and sirens. It's not like that. Not at night. Not at 3:30 in the morning. The phones still ring, but in between calls, it's just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint clicking of my coworker's keyboard. I liked it that way. The calm, the emptiness, the sense that the rest of the world was asleep and I was outside of it, somehow. That night was like any other, until the line lit up. The caller ID was blocked, which wasn't unusual. Lots of people called from unlisted numbers. I put my headset on, pressed the blinking button, and said my script. 911, what's your emergency? Nothing. At first I thought the line was dead. Then I heard it, very faint, just enough to make me lean closer. Breathing. It wasn't panicked or fast. It was slow, steady. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Hello. I tried again. This is 911. Can you tell me what's wrong? Still nothing. Just that quiet rhythm of air moving through someone's lungs. Most silent calls end up being pocket dials, kids playing with phones, or someone too afraid to speak. There's protocol for it. I asked if they could tap the phone once for yes, twice for no. I told them I was tracing the call for their safety. No response, just breathing. It went on like that for maybe 20 seconds. My coworker, Dana, glanced at me from her station, raising an eyebrow. I gave her a small shrug, but inside, my stomach was tight. Are you in danger? I asked, my voice a little sharper. The breathing changed. It was still slow, but deeper now, like whoever was on the other end had taken the phone away from their mouth, then brought it back closer. I could hear the air moving past their throat. Sir? Ma'am? If you can't speak, please. The sound shifted again. Louder. Heavy. Like someone standing right behind me. I froze. You can tell the difference between audio coming through a headset and noise in the room. I've been doing this job long enough to know. But this my brain couldn't place it. The air in my ear felt warm, like the breath was real. I turned in my chair, scanning the dimly lit room. Dana was still typing. The supervisor's office door was closed. No one was near me. I swallowed hard. If you need help, I'm here to listen. Please tell me where you are. The breathing stopped. The silence hit me harder than the sound had. It was total. No one on the phone line, no background noise. Just nothing. Hello, I whispered. Then a single, deliberate inhale. Long, deep, followed by an exhale that lasted forever. I don't know why, but I pictured someone in a dark room, holding the phone just inches from their face, their mouth stretched into a grin I couldn't see. I decided to break protocol. I'm disconnecting if you don't speak. Nothing. I pressed the button to end the call, but the line didn't drop. The light on my console stayed red. I hit it again, and again. Still red. Still connected. Dana, I said, my voice low. My line stuck. She rolled her chair over and glanced at my screen. Huh. Weird. Just reboot it. I pulled my headset away from my ear to do it, only to hear the breathing continue through the tiny gap of space between the earpiece and my head. I froze. Dana was right there beside me. She didn't hear it, but I could. Clear now. I set the headset on the desk. The breathing didn't stop. It filled the space around me, like the caller was in the room, just out of sight. Dana frowned. You okay? I nodded too fast. Yeah, just rebooting. She went back to her desk. I put the headset on again, hands shaking slightly. The breathing had changed again. Closer. Slower. You're at the dispatch center, aren't you? I said before I could stop myself. For the first time, the breathing hitched, like a small laugh without sound. My pulse was hammering now. I traced the call manually, fingers flying over the keyboard. The system spat back a result that made no sense. Location unavailable. Internal connection. Internal. I looked at the timestamp. The call had started 2 seconds before my phone lit up. I didn't speak for a while. Just listened. The breaths began to sync with mine, as if whoever it was had decided to match me. I inhaled. They inhaled. I exhaled. They exhaled. Then, they broke the rhythm. One inhale. No exhale. Just holding it. I felt a pressure in my own chest, like I needed to breathe, but couldn't. I ripped the headset off, heart racing. The light on my console was still red. The headset was on the desk, but the faintest sound still came from it. Not breathing anymore. Something else. A low, vibrating hum, just under the range of a human voice. I stared at it, willing it to stop. Then it cut out. The red light vanished. Call ended. I sat there for a full minute, trying to slow my own breathing. The rest of the night passed without another strange call, but every so often, I'd feel the sensation of warm air on the side of my face. Just for a moment. The next night, I checked the logs. There was no record of that call. No audio file. No incident number. Nothing. And yet, as I sat down on my console, the line lit up again. Same block number. I didn't answer it, but the light stayed on. And even without my headset, I could hear the breathing that I didn't want to answer it. That same block number. The same cold glow on my console. The same slow blink that made me feel like it was watching me instead of the other way around. But letting it ring was worse. It filled the room with this sharp, pulsing tone that made my skin crawl. So finally, I hit the button. 911, what's your... I stopped. No breathing this time. Not at first. Just an empty, open sound like the inside of a cave. A faint echo of nothing. I thought maybe I'd scare them off last time. Maybe it was just some creep getting their kicks. I opened my mouth to tell them I was tracing the call. Again, when the sound came back. Not breathing. It was a moan. Quiet. Strained. Like someone forcing air through their throat without words. The kind of sound you might make in your sleep during a nightmare. Sir or ma'am, I need you to tell me if you're safe, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Can you speak? Can you give me a location? The moan went on, low and shaky, then stopped. I waited. My fingers hovered over the keys. Another moan. Louder now. The air seemed thicker, heavier in my headset, like the noise was pushing into my ear instead of just playing through a speaker. Listen, I said, if you can't talk, I need you to. A sharper sound cut me off, like lips parting for the first time in a long time. A wet click, then nothing. My stomach nodded. I could feel the prick of sweat at the base of my neck. You need to speak, I said again. This is an emergency line. And then I heard it. My name, whispered so quietly I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Sarah. I froze. The name was wrong. That's not my name. My name is Clara. Close enough to get mixed up in real life, but no one on the other end should have known either. The system never lists us by name. Not for safety. I leaned closer to the mic. What did you say? The whisper came again. Slower this time. Drawn out. Cla. My chair creaked as I sat back. Who is this? There was a long pause. The moan returned, quieter now, almost thoughtful. I typed into the system, trying to trace the call. The same impossible message popped up. Location unavailable, internal connection. I swallowed. My voice shook. Where are you calling from? Silence. I could hear the hum of the line, faint and soft, and then, like someone leaning into the receiver from far away, the whisper again. I'm right here. I flinched, so hard my headset shifted. It's a stupid thing, but in that moment, I didn't want to look behind me. I kept my eyes locked on the monitor, heart pounding so loud, I was sure it was bleeding into the audio. I knew Dana was at her desk, but I didn't want to confirm it. I tried to regain control. If you're inside this building, that's a felony. I'm dispatching security right now. The line gave a low, soft sound, almost a chuckle. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see Dana's chair. Empty. My pulse spiked. I shot a glance to the supervisor's office. Still closed. I didn't hear her leave. Dana. I called, my voice small. No answer. The moan came again. Closer. Clearer. Not through the headset anymore. I yanked it off. The sound didn't stop. It was in the room. I spun on my chair. My station was in a pool of dim light, but the corners of the dispatch center were darker. Too dark. No one there. I pressed the headset back to my ear, my hands trembling now. What do you want? The breathing returned, heavy now, like it had in the first call, but with a strange wetness to it. Like every inhale scraped something raw. I tried to hang up. Same as before, the button didn't work. The line stayed red. The whisper came back. Turn around. I froze. Every nerve in my body told me not to, but I did. Slowly. The room was empty, but the light above me flickered, just once. Enough to make the shadows stretch on the walls like they were reaching. I turned back to my console. The sound in the headset had shifted again. Not breathing, not moaning, just air moving in and out in short bursts, like someone laughing without sound. My mouth was dry. You need to stop calling this line. I will report this. You can't. The voice was barely there, but I heard it. Not deep, not high, just wrong. I forced my voice to stay even. Why not? You're not here. My breath caught. My fingers hovered over the console. What? I am. Before I could respond, the call cut out. No click, no static, just gone. The red light faded. My screen went back to idle. And then I saw Dana walk in from the break room, holding a paper cup of coffee. You okay? She asked, glancing at me. You look pale. I tried to answer, but my throat felt tight. Yeah, I finally said. Just a weird call. She smiled faintly and sat down. I turned back to my monitor, but the corner of my eye caught something. My name. Not on a console. On a small, fogged oval on the surface of my desk. Written like someone had breathed on it first. When the line went dead, I thought that would be it. Just silence. Relief. Maybe the faint hum of the monitors to let me know I was back in the real world. But the breathing didn't stop. It stayed in my headset, soft and steady, like the call was still connected. I checked the screen. No active line. The log said call ended in big, bold letters. Still, I could hear it. I pressed the disconnect button again, even though there was nothing to disconnect from. The breathing carried on, unbothered. I thought maybe the headset was malfunctioning, so I pulled out of the port and set on the desk. That should have cut off the feed. It didn't. The faint rhythm still reached my ears, as if it were inside my head now instead of in the earpiece. I sat there, staring at the unplugged cord. I told myself I was just tired, that I'd been so focused on the sound for the past 2 nights that my brain was playing tricks on me. Then the pattern changed. It went from steady inhales and exhales to something slower. Longer pauses between each breath, like whoever was had settled in, content to wait me out. My hand shook as I shoved the headset into a drawer and slammed it shut. I took a deep breath, trying to get my pulse under control. Dana glanced over. You good? Fine, I lied. The rest of the shift passed without another call from the blocked number. But even when other calls came in, real ones, with real people in real emergencies, part of my attention stayed locked on that drawer. Every now and then, I swore I could hear it again. The breathing, like it was leaking out through the thin metal of the desk. When my shift finally ended, I almost ran to my car. The night air felt too cold against my face, and I kept checking my rearview mirror on the way home. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear that same deep inhale. Long exhale, over and over. The next evening, when I came in for my shift, my supervisor, Mark, was waiting near my station. He had that look people get when they've seen something they're not sure how to explain. You were online too for a while last night, he said. I frowned. Not really. I had a weird call, but it dropped pretty quick. His brow furrowed. You sure? Security footage says otherwise. He gestured toward the monitor in his office. I followed him in, the air in there stale and warm. He clicked the mouse, and the grainy black and white feed filled the screen. It was me, sitting at my station. The timestamp showed 3:42 a.m., the time I got in that last call. In the video, I was wearing my headset. I was talking. My lips were moving, my hands making small gestures like I was guiding someone through an emergency. It went on like that for over an hour. I didn't remember any of it. The call logs didn't show it either. To the system, my last recorded call that night had lasted 37 seconds. Looks like you were having a whole conversation, Mark said. His tone was casual, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. I leaned closer to the screen, staring at my own face. I didn't look scared. If anything, I looked calm. Focused. Mark fast-forwarded a little. Around the 40-minute mark, my head tilted. My mouth stopped moving. I just listened. Slowly, I started to smile. It wasn't a big smile, just the corners of my mouth pulling upward. But there was something off about it. Like the expression didn't quite belong to me. The hairs on my arms rose. This isn't possible, I whispered. Mark looked at me. Do you want me to pull the audio from it? The thought made my stomach turn. No, I don't. He hesitated, then closed the video. Back at my station, I tried to focus on the night's calls, but every time I adjusted my headset, I could feel the ghost of that breathing in my ear. It didn't matter that it was a different headset now. It was like it had imprinted itself on me. Around 2 a.m., the console lit up. Blocked number. I stared at it, my throat tight. I told myself I wouldn't answer. I let it ring out. But the ringing didn't stop. The display stayed lit, pulsing like a heartbeat. Finally, I pressed the button. I didn't say anything. The breathing came immediately. No pause. No gap. Just there, like it had been waiting the whole time. It didn't start slow this time. It was already deep, heavy, wet with that same unnatural scrape. I put the call on speaker and dropped the headset onto the desk. Dana glanced over, frowning, but didn't say anything. The sound filled the space between us. I saw her stiffen. Her eyes darted to mine. "You hear that?" I asked quietly. She nodded once. "Yeah." The breathing grew louder, as if leaning toward the mic. Then a voice joined it. Not a whisper this time. Low, quiet, but clear. "You stayed?" Dana's eyes widened. The voice continued. "I like that." The words stretched unnaturally, like each one was being pulled through something heavy before reaching us. I ended the call, or tried to. The button clicked under my finger, but the light stayed red. Dana tried on her console, too. Same result. The voice went silent. Only breathing now. I could feel in my chest, sinking with my own breath. Inhale. Exhale. I reached down, yanked the power cord from my console. The screens went black. The breathing didn't stop. Dana's console powered down, too. Mark had cut the main line from his office, trying to reset the system. The room was dark now, except for the small glow of the emergency light in the corner. And still, through nothing but air and silence, we could hear it. I stepped back from the desk. The sound followed. Not louder, not softer. Just constant. Dana whispered, "Where's it coming from?" I didn't answer, because I knew. It wasn't coming from the console anymore, or the headset, or even the room. It was in my head. I could feel it pressing against the inside of my ears, the inside of my skull. Mark came out of his office, his face pale. "The footage," he started, then stopped. "What about it?" Dana asked. He looked at me. His voice was careful, like he was choosing each word. "It's recording right now." "So, you're talking?" I shook my head. "I'm not saying a word." Mark just kept looking at me. "On the feed, you are. You've been talking since the call started." My knees felt weak. I sat down hard in the chair. The breathing inside my head deepened, slow and patient. I didn't want to see the footage. I didn't want to hear the audio. But I knew, without needing to be told, that whoever I was talking to, it wasn't someone who'd ever been on the other end of the line. The call finally ended at 4:06 a.m. The breathing stopped like someone had flipped a switch. The relief was instant and hollow, like the space it had filled in me was still there, waiting. I went home when the sun came up, but I didn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I felt that faint, warm pressure on the side of my face. And I swear, sometimes I catch myself smiling that IT started like any other slow night. The kind of shift where the silence makes you more tired than the work itself. The dispatch room was dim, just the glow of the monitors and that faint green emergency exit sign in the corner. I had a styrofoam cup of coffee in one hand, cooling faster than I could drink it. I was half listening to some old crime podcast in one ear, half watching the blinking map of the county on the other screen. It was one of those nights where you almost start to believe nothing bad is going to happen. Then the phone rang. Not the regular office line, the 911 line. That sound is different, sharper. It cuts through everything like it knows it has to. I put my coffee down and answered. 911, what's your emergency? At first, I thought no one was there. Just the faintest hiss of static. Then, a voice. Small. Hi. It was a kid. No older than 7, maybe 8. But he was whispering, and I mean whispering. I had to turn the volume up just to make out the words. "My name's Tyler," he said, voice trembling. "Okay, Tyler." I kept my tone calm, even like we're trained to. "Are you safe right now?" Long pause. I could hear his breathing, quick and shallow, through the line. "But there's a boy under my bed." I stopped typing. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "A boy? Do you mean like a friend? Someone you know?" No, his voice tightened. "He's copying me." The way he said it, like it was the most important detail in the world, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I leaned closer to the headset. "What do you mean he's copying you?" Tyler's voice dropped even lower. When I talk, he talks. The same. Like he's me. Static crackled between us, and I thought maybe I'd misheard. But then, can you tell me where you are right now? I asked. My room, he whispered. Okay. And where's your mom or dad? They're downstairs, watching TV. I didn't want to go get them. He said not to. That last part made my chest tighten. I've handled enough calls to know when something's not just a kid's imagination. His voice wasn't playful. It wasn't pretending. It was the voice of someone scared to even be speaking. I started typing his address into the system. All right, Tyler. I'm sending someone to help you. But I want you to stay on the phone with me, okay? He didn't answer right away, just breathing. Then, okay. But this time, I heard it. A second, okay. Identical. Same pitch. Same breath. Same everything. And it didn't come through on the line like an echo. It was quieter, further away, like someone had whispered it into the room he was in. Tyler, was that you? No. And again, that second voice. No. The hair on my arms prickled. Tyler, I need you to tell me exactly where this boy is. Another pause. He's under the bed. He's under the bed, the other voice repeated. I didn't know what to say for a moment. My training says keep the kid calm, keep him talking, but every instinct I had was telling me something about this was wrong. Is he touching you? Has he hurt you? No, Tyler said. No, the second voice said. My fingers were cold on the keyboard. I glanced at the call clock. We were barely 2 minutes in. I kept talking, waiting for the officer I'd dispatched to confirm arrival. Tyler, is there anything different about this boy? Anything you can see? I can't see him, he whispered. He doesn't come out, but I can feel him. When I move my hand, I feel another hand moving too. Under the mattress. Under my breath, I muttered, Jesus. And then I heard it. Jesus. The exact same tone. I sat back. Tyler, is he repeating everything you say? Yes. Yes. A sound came through then, soft, like the shift of weight on a floorboard. I heard Tyler's breathing hitch. He's moving. He's moving. Tyler, I need you to get out of that room right now, I said louder this time. And then silence. No breath. No background noise. Just dead air. Tyler, are you there? Nothing. Tyler, talk to me. And then, after what felt like forever, a whisper, but not the boy's. This one was lower, almost like an adult imitating a child. He doesn't want to talk anymore. It didn't sound like it came from my headset. It sounded like it was in the room with me. I ripped the headset halfway off my ear, staring at it like it might explain what I just heard. The line was still connected. And then I heard movement again, faint and quick, followed by a door creak. Static hissed in my ear, and then Tyler's voice came back, panicked, not whispering anymore. He's getting out. The line went dead. The sudden click of the disconnect made me flinch. I called back, straight to voicemail. The responding officer radioed in a minute later. He was on scene. I patched through, listening in. He sounded calm at first. Said the parents were surprised to see him. Said the kid had just run downstairs crying, saying there was someone under the bed. But they checked. Nothing. No one there. They even moved the bed away from the wall. Nothing but dust and a dropped Lego piece. The officer cleared the scene, said it must have been a nightmare. But nightmares don't call 911, and they sure as hell don't talk back. That night, I stayed a little later after my shift ended. I told myself it was just to catch up on some reports, but really, I didn't want to go home yet. Because in the quiet of the dispatch room, every time I stopped typing, I could swear. I still heard that whisper, just under my breath. Almost like it was waiting for me to speak first. I thought I'd gotten used to strange calls. You work long enough in dispatch, you hear the worst of people, panic, blood, last breaths. But that kid's whisper from the night before, it stayed with me. All shift, I kept replaying it in my head. There's a boy under my bed. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it, like he was trying not to wake something. And that last sound before the line cut, that wet, muffled breath in the static, it had followed me home into my dreams. When I sat down the next night, headset in place, the board glowing with idle lines, I told myself it was just another shift. Calls come, calls go. But when line 3 lit up, the same number blinking on the screen, my mouth went dry. I almost didn't answer. Almost let someone else take it. But habit took over. 911, what's your emergency? Silence at first. Then, the same voice. Small, breathless. Hello. My spine tightened. Hi there. This is 911. Are you safe? I called you before, he whispered. It wasn't exactly fear in his tone, more like he was exhausted. Is this about the boy under your bed? I asked before I could stop myself. A pause. Then, in the faintest voice, he's still here. My eyes flicked to the time, 1:13 a.m. Almost the exact same as last night. Okay, are you in your room right now? Yes. Is your door locked? Yes. I wrote it down like that would somehow anchor me in protocol. But something about his whisper was different tonight. It sounded flatter, less like a kid hiding under the covers, more like someone pressing their mouth close to the phone because they have to. I kept my tone calm. Is your mom or dad home? They're sleeping. I didn't like the way he said it. Slow, uneven. All right, buddy. Can you tell me your name again? Another pause. Then, I can't. Not I don't want to. Not I don't know. I can't. Before I could push, I heard it, a faint second voice. Underneath his. It was him. Same pitch, same whisper. But just a fraction of a second late, like an echo bouncing off something close. Can't. I froze. It wasn't the line. We've had bad connections, lag from cell towers. But this wasn't that. This was layered. The voices overlapped in a way that made my skin tighten. I swallowed. Is there someone else in a room with you? The kid didn't answer, but the second voice did. Yes. My chest went cold. The boy on the line let out a shaky breath. Stop copying me. The other voice, identical, followed a heartbeat later. Stop copying me. My brain started trying to explain it away. Feedback? Some kind of app? Maybe a twin brother? But each time one spoke, the other followed exactly. Same tone, same little tremble in certain words. It was perfect but delayed. I could hear the kid's breathing pick up. I matched mine to his, hoping it would keep him steady. Can you see the other boy right now? I asked. No, he whispered. No, the copy whispered back. I pressed the headset tighter to my ear. Where is he? Under the bed. Under the bed. The second voice's timing was closer now. Not half a second late. More like a quarter. Almost on top of his words. I reached for my supervisor's attention, mouthing Trace and pointing to my screen. She nodded and started the process. Is he touching you? Did he hurt you? No. He just says what I say. And he's getting faster. My stomach twisted. He wasn't wrong. The second voice was almost perfectly synced now, like it was learning. Do you feel safe where you are? No. No. That last no from the second voice wasn't quite right. The pitch dipped at the end. A tiny difference, but enough to make me think. This wasn't a recording. This thing, whatever it was close. I want you to stay on the line with me, I said. The boy sniffled. Okay. Okay. The voices landed in unison. My chest tightened. I wasn't sure which one had said it first. The kid started talking faster. He only talks when I talk. So if I talk too fast, maybe. He only talks when I talk. So if I talk too fast, maybe. Perfectly matched. Same breath breaks. Same little quiver. The kid whimpered. I heard sheets rustle. He's moving. He's moving. I gripped the desk. Where? The boy didn't answer right away. When he did, it was barely a breath. Closer to the top of the bed. Closer to the top of the bed. Something about the way the second voice said it, slower like tasting the words, made my stomach knot. I saw my supervisor frown. She slid me a note. Trace stuck. No address found. I didn't have time to process. The kid gasped. He's trying to sound like me. He's trying to sound like me. This time, the second voice's tone was off. Higher at the start, lower at the end, like someone imitating a sound they've only just learned. My brain felt split. Half of me was trying to keep the kid talking, the other half screaming that none of this was possible. Can you get out of the bed? I asked. The boy hesitated. If I move, he'll move. If I move, he'll move. The second voice was right on top of his now. No delay. I forced my voice calm. What happens if you don't talk? The line went dead silent. I strained to hear, and for a few seconds, there was nothing. Then, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. A long, slow breath. Not on the phone. In the room with him. The boy whispered, he's smiling. He's smiling. That was it. That was the breaking point in my mind. The copy's voice dragged on the last word. stretching the ing like a yawn. Not a perfect mimic anymore. Something was showing through. I could hear the boy crying now. You have to help me. You have to help me. It wasn't even trying to match the fear in his voice anymore. The copy sounded almost pleased. My supervisor was shaking her head. Still no location. All I could do was keep him there. Keep him talking. What's he doing now? No answer. What's he doing now? The second voice said, except this time, the copy spoke first. My whole body tensed. Then the boy screamed, not loud, but sharp like something had grabbed him. Let me go. Let me go. Both voices were talking over each other now, but the copy's pitch was breaking, the words bending at strange angles. I shouted into the line, stay with me. Keep talking. The kid's voice came back, ragged. He's on the bed. He's on the bed. Every hair on my arms stood up. The copy's tone was almost gleeful now, breathier, the syllables rolling slow. Can you run? I asked. The boy whispered, he's right in front of me. He's right in front of me. The words landed in unison. For a moment, none of us spoke. I could hear only breathing. 2 sets. One shallow and quick. One slow and deep. Then, the second voice said something on its own. Soft. Careful. Don't hang up. The kid whimpered, don't hang up. Now was the real boy copying it. That's when the line went dead. Just a flat, empty hum in my ear. I sat there, hand frozen on the desk, the last words still in my head, not knowing which voice had been the real one at the end. And for the rest of that shift, every time someone spoke in the room, I found myself listening for the faintest delay. Like maybe there was someone under my desk, dude, I didn't think I'd be back in that room so soon. Not after what happened on the call with the kid. Not after hearing that strange overlap in his voice. But here I was, standing in the doorway, watching 2 officers sweep their flashlights slowly over the walls. The smell was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't strong, but it was wrong. Like dust and something sour. The kind of scent you don't notice right away until you've been in it too long, and then you realize it's been there the whole time. The kid's bed sat crooked against the wall, sheets tangled, pillow on the floor. A small nightstand with a single drawer was tipped halfway open, and I could see a flashlight inside, battery corroded and useless. The officers moved carefully, lifting things, checking corners, opening the closet. It looked normal enough. That's what made it worse. I kept thinking about that call, about the way his words had split in 2. One voice just behind the other, like an echo that didn't belong to the room he was in. I had asked him if he was alone. He said yes. Both of them said yes. The taller officer, Reynolds, was the first to break the silence. Nobody under the bed. He straightened, rubbing at his nose. Dusty as hell, though. Kid's got a sock collection down there. The other officer, Martinez, checked the window. Locked. Old latch. Flaking white paint clinging to the frame. No signs of anyone forcing their way in or out. I was standing with my hands in my jacket pockets, feeling useless. I wasn't supposed to be here. Dispatchers don't go to scenes. But after last night's call, I couldn't stay in the chair. I had to see the place. Reynolds tapped the wall near the closet. Hollow here. Martinez looked over. Most of these houses have empty spaces behind the walls. No big deal. But something about the way Reynolds kept knocking, slow, listening like he was waiting for something to knock back, made my stomach twist. The sound was dull at first, then sharper in one spot. Metallic. He crouched and pulled at the edge of the carpet. It peeled up with a soft rip, sending a puff of dust into the air. My throat tightened when I saw the edge of a vent cover. It was old, rectangular, rust along the edges. I took a step closer without meaning to. The screws holding it in place looked newer than the vent itself. Too new. The metal was scratched around them, like someone had been unscrewing and rescrewing it over and over again. Reynolds pulled a screwdriver from his belt and began working the screws loose. The sound of the metal scraping against the threads was sharp enough to make my teeth ache. When the cover came off, the smell hit harder. Stale, dry air with an undercurrent of something sour, almost coppery. The vent opening was wider than I expected. Not just a duct. It looked like it opened into some kind of crawl space inside the walls. The beam from Martinez's flashlight cut into it, revealing dust-covered metal stretching in both directions. And the scratches. They were everywhere. Thin, ragged lines etched into the metal, some shallow, some deep. And at the end of each line, the faint curve of a fingernail mark. Jesus, Martinez whispered. Those are fresh. He wasn't wrong. The metal around the scratches wasn't dulled by dust. The edges were shiny, catching the flashlight. I found myself staring too long at them. It's hard to explain, but they didn't look random. They weren't scattered. They were clustered in desperate, overlapping bursts, like someone had been clawing from the inside out. Reynolds reached into the opening with his flashlight, angling it toward the left. Can't see how far it goes. Probably runs between the walls. Could be an access point to the basement or attic. Martinez leaned in. No way a kid's crawling in there. Too narrow. I thought about the voice on the phone, the way it had seemed to come from more than one place. And I wasn't sure I agreed with him. Reynolds glanced at me. You look pale. I'm fine, I lied. My hands were cold inside my pockets. The truth was, I kept picturing the kid lying here last night, staring at that spot on the floor. Listening. Maybe hearing the faint scrape of fingernails under him. Martinez straightened. We should check the rest of the vents in the house. They did. Every room. Most of them were old and dusty, nothing unusual. But in the hallway outside the kids' room, they found another one, smaller, almost hidden behind a bookcase. Same new screws. Same scratches. It felt like the walls were connected, not just by air ducts, but by something else. When they were done, Reynolds replaced the covers. Martinez made a note to have a building inspector come out. That was it for them. Another strange but explainable detail in a night full of them. But for me, it wasn't done. I waited until they left the room before crouching beside the vent again. I leaned close enough to hear the faint rush of air inside. It wasn't the hum of a running system. The furnace was off. It was something else. Quieter. Shifting. Like fabric brushing metal. I pulled back fast, heart thudding. I told myself it could have been anything, a draft, a loose bit of insulation. But the thought had already rooted in my head. Someone could be in there. The officers packed up, the kids' parents thanked them, and everyone moved toward the front door. I followed, but before I stepped out, I glanced back down the hallway toward the bedroom. The carpet was still lifted in that corner. The vent cover gleamed faintly in the dim light, and I could have sworn I saw the edge of it move. That night at the station, I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. The sound, the scratches, the space between the walls. I looked up the floor plans for that neighborhood. They were all built in the 70s, simple layouts, no big hidden rooms. But the ducts were wide in some places, narrow in others, crisscrossing the house in strange, almost illogical patterns. Some of them dead-ended. The kids' room was one of those. According to the plans, the vent under his carpet didn't connect to the main duct system at all. It ran a short way, then just stopped. No outlet. No connection. So why was there air moving through it? The next day, I went back. I told myself it was to follow up, maybe get more details for the report. But really, I just wanted to see it again. The parents weren't home. The door was locked. I sat in my car across the street, staring at the house, feeling like I was trespassing without even moving. I kept thinking about the fingernail marks. How fresh they looked. How they overlapped, like whoever made them had been down there more than once. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I kept hearing that second voice from the call. The one perfectly in sync with the boy. If he'd been copying the kid, was he also copying me? I didn't go up to the door. I didn't need to. I could see enough from the street. The blinds in the kid's bedroom were drawn, but there was a small gap between them. And in that gap, I saw movement. Not big, not obvious. Just a subtle shift of shadow, like something was passing in front of the window from inside. I blinked and it was gone. But the feeling stayed. That same cold stillness in my hands. That same crawling thought that maybe the kid hadn't been lying when he said he wasn't alone. Maybe the thing in the walls had been there longer than anyone realized. And maybe it was still there. I didn't write that last part in the report. Some things are harder to put into words when you know no one will believe you. But I keep thinking about that vent. And those scratches. And how, when I leaned close, I thought I could hear breathing. Not loud. Not obvious, just matching mine. A half second behind that, I was halfway through my night shift when the call came in. At first, I thought it was just another drunk driver or someone lost on the back roads. The line crackled so bad, I almost didn't hear the voice. Hello? Hello. Can you hear me? The man was shouting. His words were jagged, like they were being dragged out of his throat. This is County Dispatch, I said. Sir, calm down and tell me where you are. But his breathing was so loud it swallowed the rest of the static. I could picture him in my mind, hunched over the phone, knuckles white on the steering wheel. They're outside my car, he said. His voice broke on the last word. Who's outside your car? He didn't answer right away. I heard the sound of wind rushing past the phone, but no engine, no music, no background noise. Just emptiness. Shadows, he said finally. They're moving, not people, just shadows. I try to keep my voice steady. Sir, I need your location. Are you on the highway or a county road? There was a pause, then a low, quivering laugh. Not like he was amused, but like he couldn't believe he was saying this out loud. I don't know where I am. I was driving, and then all the lights went out. That was when I glanced at the power outage map on my secondary screen. The grid showed a massive dark patch in the rural north end of the county. Every house, every streetlight, every gas station, all blacked out. I'd seen storms cause that kind of thing before, but tonight the skies were clear. What's your name? I asked. Michael. Okay. Michael, do you see any road signs? Landmarks? I can't see anything, he whispered. The headlights don't work. I tried the brights, but it's like the road just swallows them. Something about the way he said that made my skin prickle. I typed into the system, marking his call as urgent, and sent a ping to the nearest patrol unit. But the GPS tracker on his phone wasn't locking. The signal kept blinking in and out. Stay in the car, I told him. Keep the doors locked. Officers are on the way. His breathing picked up again. They're getting closer. Michael, listen to me. No, you don't understand. His voice cracked, breaking into something close to a sob. They don't touch the ground. They slide, like smoke but thicker. I can see the shape of their heads. The hair on my arms stood straight up. I've heard people hallucinate on meth, on sleep deprivation, on fear. But there was something in his tone, something that didn't sound like confusion or madness. It sounded like certainty. They're right by the glass now, he said. Michael, stay calm. Keep talking to me. The phone went quiet except for his shaky breaths. I imagined him staring straight ahead, not daring to move. My own reflection stared back at me from the dark computer monitor, and for some reason, I realized I was holding my breath too. Then, so softly I almost missed it. They're smiling. Static roared through the line. Michael, the call cut out. I stared at the empty line on my screen, my finger hovering over the dial-back button. I called again, twice, but it went straight to dead tone. The patrol car I'd sent reported they were already heading north, but the power outage had knocked out several streetlights, and they were moving slow. I waited, checked the outage map again. Still black. Checked my own reflection again, and realized I was tapping my leg, a nervous habit I hadn't done since my first month on the job. When the patrol car finally radioed in, it wasn't what I expected. Dispatch, with the location ping from the last call. There's no vehicle here. I swallowed. Are you sure you're at the right spot? Affirmative. We've been through the stretch twice. Nothing. They swept further north, still nothing. I stayed late after my shift ended, listening to the static replay of Michael's last moments. Every time, I got stuck on that same sentence. They're smiling. The outage lasted until sunrise. No storms, no technical explanation, no equipment failure. Just a dead zone in the middle of the county, where a man's voice dissolved into static and shadows slid across his windows. The weirdest part? The next day, I looked up Michael's number in the system. It didn't exist. No record of any call from that phone. Like he'd never been on the road at all. When I first picked up the call, I thought it was going to be like any other after-hours rural emergency. Some stranded driver, maybe a flat tire or a dead battery. But by the time we'd been on the line for 2 minutes, I realized it wasn't just about being stuck. It was about what was out there with him. The man's voice had been trembling, rapid. They're moving, they're still moving out there. They're not. They're not supposed to be there. I don't know how many there are. I try to keep him talking, keep him grounded. Sir, you're safe inside your vehicle, right? Doors locked. But before he could answer, the sound changed. It's hard to explain what I heard. Static is the closest word, but it wasn't the clean kind you get from a bad radio. It had texture to it, like air being dragged through 100 small holes at once. And beneath it, breathing. Not just one set of lungs, either. Dozens. Short inhales, slow exhales. In unison, I leaned forward in my chair, pressing the headset tighter against my ear. Sir, you're cutting out. Can you repeat that? The static swallowed his reply. For a few seconds, I thought the line had dropped completely, until, faintly, his voice came through again. They're not in the car. That sentence stuck with me more than it should have. Not because of what it meant, but because of the way he said it. Like he was trying to convince himself as much as he was telling me. I glanced at the status board. We'd already tried to dispatch a unit to his location, but the outage had knocked out most of the signals in that area. The GPS ping we had on him was already 5 minutes old. Sir, stay with me, I said. You're inside, right? Doors locked, windows up. More static, more breathing. The hair on my arm stood up. I worked dispatch for years. I've heard everything, screaming, gunshots, people begging for their lives. You learn to tune out the emotion and just get the facts. But this made me want to take my headset off. The breathing wasn't coming from him. I could tell. His earlier panic had been loud, messy, unsteady. This was synchronized. Every inhale and exhale lined up like some rehearsed performance. Then the sound shifted, and I realized why it was so unnerving. It was getting closer. Sir, I need you to check something for me. Are you alone in the car? This time, no voice came back, just the long sound of him swallowing. Then, very quietly, he whispered, I think so. The dispatcher next to me gave me a sideways glance. I hadn't even realized how tightly I was gripping my pen until it snapped in my hand. Do you see them now? I asked. There was a pause. I could hear his seat creak as he shifted, his clothes rustling. No, they're gone. For a moment, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. But then almost instantly, the breathing returned. Louder. And this time it was inside. I sat up straight. Sir, listen to me. Lock your doors. Now. They already are, he said. His voice was quieter, strained. They've been locked since I stopped. Okay, don't look around. Just stay still. I'm sending help right now. Where? What? You said you're sending help. Where are they going to find me? I glanced at the screen, but the GPS data was frozen. No updates. The outage had swallowed the grid hole. They're on their way to your last known location. I lied. Just keep talking to me. I don't think I can, he said. The breathing had shifted again. Now it wasn't steady. It was curious. Some inhales quick, some long. Like someone was leaning closer, then pulling back. Testing the air. And under it, I started to hear something else. Something faint, buried deep in the static. Words. I couldn't make them out at first. It was like a dozen people whispering in the next room. But after a while, certain syllables began to cut through. Come. Open. Look. I rubbed my ear, thinking it might just be interference, maybe cross-channel bleed from another call. But the longer I listened, the more certain I became those whispers were for him. Sir, I said slowly, do you hear anything in the car right now? Silence. Then, they're not speaking. Not with their mouths. A cold weight dropped into my stomach. Okay. I want you to stay calm. Keep your eyes forward. Can you do that? His breathing quickened. I think they're behind me. I wanted to tell him not to look. That's the first thing you always want to say, because once someone sees what's scaring them, you can't pull them back from that edge. But the truth is, people look anyway. There was a long, quiet second, then the faint sound of his head turning. A noise came through the headset, then, soft, wet, almost like lips parting, followed by something that wasn't quite a word and wasn't quite a sigh. Then he started screaming. The static spiked. The whispers rose, and his voice cracked in terror. I pulled the headset slightly away from my ear, but didn't dare take it off. They're in here. There, oh God, there. The rest dissolved into a mess of noise. I couldn't even tell what was him and what was them anymore. The breathing, the whispers, the ragged gasps, they were all blending together. Sir, I shouted into the mic, stay in the car. Help is coming. He didn't answer. All I could hear now was that chorus of inhales and exhales, perfectly in sync again. And then, without warning, it stopped. No static, no breathing, No screaming. Just dead silence. "Sir," I said, "can you hear me?" Nothing. I waited, staring at the signal readout, praying for some flicker of movement. Then, after nearly 30 seconds, a single sound came through. One breath. Slow. Deep. And it wasn't his that I didn't hear the click when the line went dead. It was stranger than that. 1 second the man's voice was breaking apart in the static, all those breaths crowding and like the phone was pressed to the lungs of 100 people at once. And the next, there was nothing. Not silence. Not the soft dead air you get when a call drops. It was like the phone wasn't even a phone anymore. No hum. No hiss. Just a hole in the air where sound should have been. I kept saying his name. "Sir, are you still there? Hello." I even checked my headset cable like maybe I'd yanked it loose. But the time counter was still ticking. The call was still live. It didn't make sense. Dispatch rooms aren't like the movies. They're loud. Phones ringing, radio chatter, someone coughing into their coffee across the room. But at that moment, I could barely hear any of it. Like the noise in the room was pressed behind glass. Like the only thing that existed was that thin, impossible nothing coming from my headset. Then the smell hit. It wasn't in the room. Not really. It was in my head. Like the kind of smell you remember from years ago, but sharper, more intrusive. Burning plastic. Melting rubber. The kind of stink that sticks to your hair and your skin after a car fire. I've been on dispatch long enough to know that smell. I shouldn't have been able to smell it. I ripped the headset off, almost dropped it. The sound of the room came back, sudden and too bright. Someone from another desk was asking if I was okay, but my throat wouldn't work right. I didn't tell them. I just shoved the headset back on and switched channels. But the call was still active. No one on the other end. No breathing. Just that emptiness. When the deputies found the car, they radioed in like it was routine. Standard traffic collision. Off-county line, shoulder of the road. Except when they gave the make and model, my stomach went tight. It was his car. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to be the one to make it weird if it wasn't. But then they said it was burned. Not wrecked. Not just a little scorch from the engine bay. They said it was burned down to the frame. Tires gone. Windows melted into warped puddles on the ground. But the phone was still there. Deputy Mark's voice got quieter when he said it over the radio. Like he didn't want to say it at all. He said they found it sitting on what used to be the passenger seat. Screen still lit. Battery full. And this is the part that still makes my teeth hurt. The call timer was still running. The call to me. It had been going for over an hour by the time they got there. No one speaking. No background noise. Just a line that wouldn't die. Mark said they tried ending the call from the phone itself. It wouldn't. Tried shutting the phone off, wouldn't. The only way it stopped was when the signal cut out on its own, right as they were putting the phone into an evidence bag. I didn't tell them I'd already heard that same kind of nothing before they even arrived. I didn't tell them about the smell. The next shift, I thought about asking to listen to the recording. Every call we take is logged automatically, even silent ones. But something in me didn't want to hear it. I kept picturing the man's voice breaking up in the static. That strange hiss between his words like the sound of a lung that's been split open. I was afraid if I played the recording, I'd hear something else. Something I'd missed in the moment. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd sounded right before it happened. The way his words had gone from pleading to something flatter. Like he'd stopped talking to me and was talking at something just past me. "They're not in the car." That's what he said before the static swallowed him. Not he's not in the car. I didn't ask who they were. I didn't get the chance. And now I keep wondering if they were already there when he called, or if they'd gotten there while we were speaking. 2 days later, I passed Marks in the hallway outside the comms room. He didn't look like himself. Not tired exactly, just hollow, like someone had taken the bones out of his face. He stopped me and asked if I'd been the one on the call that night. I said yes. He nodded a little, like he'd expected that answer. Then he asked if I'd heard anything else on the line. I said no because it was easier, but my chest felt hot, like I just lied to a priest. Marks didn't say anything after that. He just walked away. And maybe I imagined it, but it looked like the knees of his uniform pants had faint, ash-colored stains. That weekend, the dream started. It always begins the same. I'm sitting in my station, headset on, fingers resting on the keyboard. The phone rings, not the normal digital tone, but an old, mechanical one, like the kind you'd hear in a payphone booth. I pick up. At first, it's just the man's voice again. Same words, same breathless panic. They're not in the car. But as he says it, the static comes. And inside the static, you can hear them. Not breathing exactly, but inhaling. Long, slow pulls of air like they're learning how to do it. Then the smell seeps in. Not faint like before, thick and choking. The air in the dream gets hot enough to sting my skin. And I can see it now. The car, blackened and skeletal, the air shimmering with heat above the hood. There's no driver, no one in the passenger seat. But in the back, there's movement. Shapes shifting behind the melted glass. Too many shoulders. Too many heads. Breathing in unison. That's when I wake up. Every time. I wake up with my throat raw, like I've been breathing smoke for real. By Monday, I'd convinced myself I was just shaken. That would pass. But when I came in for my shift, my login wouldn't work. Admin lock. They said it was a glitch in the system, but they kept me off calls for the night. Had me doing paperwork in the back. At one point, I caught two supervisors talking in the hall, voices low. I swear I heard one of them say, "Phone's still active." When they noticed me looking, they shut up fast. The next day, Marks came by the station again. He didn't say much, just asked if I'd be willing to look at something. In the trunk of his cruiser, he had a manila folder. Inside were the scene photos from the car. I didn't want to see them. I really didn't. But I think part of me needed to. Most of the shots were what you'd expect. Charred frame, melted dashboard, twisted metal. But then there was one taken from the back seat, looking forward. And in the reflection on what was left of the windshield. You could see faces. Not clear. Not sharp enough to identify. But they were there, pressed close to the glass, crowding into the same space. Some had mouths open like they were shouting. Others just stared. And their skin, what little you could see, looked wrong. Like it had been peeled away and put back in the wrong order. Mark said they weren't there when he took the photo. Said he didn't see them until after the prints came back. And that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the phone. It was sitting in the front seat in almost every shot, still lit up. And in the reflection on the screen was me. Not just me in uniform. Me at my desk. Me wearing the same headset I had on when the call came in. Looking straight ahead. Mouth moving. Like I was still talking to him. Except in the photo, my eyes were wrong. The whites were gone. Just black. The same color as the burned-out car. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how my face ended up in a photo taken miles away from where I was. And I don't know why. But I've been keeping my phone in a drawer ever since. Sometimes, though, especially late at night, I hear it. That old, mechanical ring. Muffled, like it's under a pile of clothes. And when I open the drawer, the screen is lit. No number. No name. Just the word active. And in that dead, empty space where sound should be, I can hear them breathing. I had to start to think the night was over. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the computer towers and the faint crackle of static on the police radio. My shift was dragging into that strange hour where everything feels suspended, like time's been thinned out and stretched too far. I'd finished logging the incident from earlier, the burned-out car, the phone still warm on the seat, the call still open even though no one was there. That one had already crawled under my skin. We'd had the deputies clear the scene, take the evidence back to the station. The official report would say unresolved vehicle fire, driver unaccounted for. But the part that mattered to me wasn't in the report. It was that ringing silence on the other end of the call. Like whoever had been there was still listening. Or maybe still waiting. I was telling myself I'd go make another cup of coffee when the console lit up. The ring was sharp, too loud for the dead air I'd gotten used to. I leaned forward, checked the ID. At first, nothing registered. Just a number. The system flashed it in green. Then my stomach went cold. I knew the number. Not from memory, not from recognition. It was because the note field in the database was already filled in. The name attached to it had a little gray cross next to it. That's the mark we use for deceased individuals. The call log said inactive, death confirmed. Date of death, July 2009. 15 years ago. I stared at it until the ringing felt like it was coming from inside my own head. When I picked up, I told myself I'd hear nothing. That the system had glitched, maybe pulled old data when another line came in. But as soon as I said 911, What's your emergency? I heard it. The same voice. The same panic. The same words. They're here. They're here, oh God. Then the sound of him stumbling over himself, running. The scrape of shoes on pavement. And then that sharp, wet kind of breathing, the kind that sounds like the lungs are full of glass. It was exactly the same as the call from earlier that night. Every pause, every scream, every rustle in the background. I could feel my skin tightening, my jaw locking. I knew how this call ended. I'd already lived through it. But it kept going beat for beat, as if someone had pressed replay. I didn't want to say his name, but it slipped out anyway. Sir. The second I did, my headset crackled with that same horrible burst of static from before. In the background, I could hear it a deeper sound almost below hearing range. Like a hum. It was there before, I think, but I hadn't noticed it. It felt alive. When a man screamed, it tore through me. I swear it was the exact pitch, the exact second as the earlier call. The dispatcher in me tried to go through the motions. Ask his location. Tell him help was coming. But I already knew he wouldn't answer. Not the way I wanted him to. Sure enough, the call cut off mid-breath. I yanked my headset off and stared at the console. The screen still showed active call. Timer frozen at 3:17. The phone icon pulsed like it was still connected. And that number, the one that belonged to a man who'd burned to death in 2009, was still displayed. I think part of me was hoping I'd imagined it. But I pulled up the old incident archive. The victim's name was Robert Caldwell. Male, 42. Cause of death, smoke inhalation, third-degree burns. Location, his car on County Line Road. When the deputies found him, the vehicle was destroyed. They said his cell phone was fused to the passenger seat by melted plastic, but the casing wasn't burned. Like the heat had warped everything around it, but spared the phone. The note said something else, too. At the time of the fire, Caldwell's phone had been connected to 911. The last dispatcher to hear him was a woman named Ellen Hughes. I'd never met her. She retired before I started. But I've heard the way people talk about her. They say she quit without notice. No goodbye. No exit interview. She just stopped showing up. When I scrolled to the bottom of the old transcript, I froze. Her last note in the system wasn't professional. It wasn't even complete. It just said, "It's not over." I sat there staring at those 3 words while the clock above the main console ticked so loud it felt like it was in my skull. I should have deleted the log and moved on. I should have pretended the call was nothing but a glitch. But then, the phone rang again. Same number. Same green flash. Same little gray cross. I answered, but I didn't speak this time. I just listened. At first, nothing. Then, faint, almost too far away, footsteps. Slow, crunching over gravel. The breathing came next. But this time it wasn't frantic. It was measured, steady, almost calm. Then a voice, low and deliberate. You heard me. It wasn't the man from before. I don't know how I knew, but I did. It sounded wrong. Heavy, like it was speaking through something. Like the words were pushing through water to reach me. I felt my whole body lock. And then it said my name. Not dispatcher. Not ma'am. My name. The call cut. For a long time, I just sat there, headset in my lap, screen glowing in front of me. The room felt colder. Not like the AC kicked on, like something had drawn the warmth out of the air. I told myself not to call it back. But my hand moved on its own, typing the number into the manual dial field. It didn't ring. It didn't even try to connect. The line went straight to that hollow tone you get when a number's been dead for years. I went back into the archives, reading every scrap of Caldwell's file. There was one photo, the car after the fire. It was taken at night, in the glow of the emergency lights. The frame was warped, the interior blackened. But in the passenger seat, the phone sat upright. Its screen lit up. Call timer still running. I closed the file. I don't want to say I felt watched, because it wasn't like that. It was more like I was already in whatever place that call came from. The rest of the shift passed in pieces. I kept checking the console, expecting it to light up again. It didn't. Not until 4:12 a.m., when a morning shift walked in and I logged out. I didn't tell anyone. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding insane. But all I can think about is Ellen Hughes and how she wrote, "It's not over. I've been a dispatcher for almost 6 years." You'd think that would make me numb to the voices, the panic, the broken breathing. the screaming. But the truth is, every single one sticks to you. Not like scars, those fade. More like splinters. Some tiny, almost invisible. Others deep, aching, impossible to ignore. Most nights, I can separate myself from it. I have to. If I didn't, I'd go insane. But there's one night, one call, that won't leave me. Not because of the blood or the fear or what happened on the other end, but because the voice I heard that night was mine. It started like any other shift. The low hum of the monitors, the constant beeping from lines lighting up and dying down. I had my coffee sitting just out of arm's reach, so I wouldn't knock it over when typing. My headset felt heavier than usual, probably because I'd been wearing it for almost 4 hours straight without a break. Nothing unusual, just another graveyard shift in a room no one outside ever thinks about. At 2:14 a.m., the line lit up. The tone in my ear was the same dull chirp I'd heard thousands of times. I straightened a little, pushed my chair in, and answered like I always did. 911, what's your emergency? The line was quiet for half a second. Then, my voice answered. 911, what's your emergency? I froze. At first, I thought maybe the call had bounced back, some glitch in the system. We've had it happen before. A patch error where a line loops into itself for a few seconds before routing to the right place. But this wasn't a delay. It wasn't me from 2 seconds ago. It was me now, speaking back. Same tone, same rhythm, even a slight drag I sometimes get at the end of a sentence. I said, "Who is this?" And it said, "Who is this?" I could feel my heart thudding harder in my chest, but I forced my voice steady. "This is a 911 emergency line. What's your location?" The voice repeated, perfectly. "This is a 911 emergency line. What's your location?" Not a recording. Not clipped or mechanical. Alive. Breathing. Matching me in real time. I could hear the faint sound of air moving in the background, the kind you hear when someone's sitting too close to their receiver. But there was something else underneath it. A faint, hollow hum. Like the space behind the voice was too big, too empty. Like a room no one should be in. I reached over and waved at the only other dispatcher on shift, Bailey, 2 desks over. She looked up, eyebrows pinched, and mouthed, "What?" I pointed to my headset, covered the mic, and whispered, "Listen to this." She patched in on her console. I saw her head tilt, then her eyes go wide. She mouthed back, "That's you." I swallowed hard. The voice, my voice, kept breathing in my ear. Slow, measured, waiting. "Where are you right now?" I asked. The answer came instantly. "Where are you right now?" Not just the words. The exact tone. The exact emphasis. I felt my hands starting to sweat against the console. This wasn't a prank. No one could do this in perfect sync without some kind of delay, without breaking the pattern. And yet, every breath I took it mirrored. Every pause it held. Every accidental noise, the faint click of my tongue, the shuffle of my sleeve, came right back to me exactly as I made it. I leaned back from the mic, not speaking. The voice stayed silent too. Bailey mouthed, "Hang up." I shook my head. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe fear. Maybe some part of me thought if I broke the connection, I'd never know what it wanted. So I sat there, breathing into the line. And the other me breathed back. Finally, I said, "If you need help, tell me what happened." The voice repeated, then paused. And for the first time, it broke pattern. "I'm you," it said. Still in my tone, still in my voice, but the words were its own. Not a mirror, not a reflection. Something else. Bailey's hand flew to her mouth. I just sat there, staring at the wall, trying to find something solid to hold on to in my head. "What do you mean?" I asked. The voice didn't repeat me. It just said, "You know where I am." And I swear, I could hear the faintest sound of movement in the background. Like bare feet shifting on a floor. A slow drag. "No," I said. "I don't know where you are." It chuckled. God, hearing myself laugh from somewhere I couldn't see made my stomach turn. "Yes, you do," it said. "You left me here." My throat felt dry. I glanced at Bailey. She shook her head, her expression begging me to end the call. But I didn't. I couldn't. The voice went quiet again. Just breathing. Just waiting. I tried again. "What's your name?" "You know my name." A pause. "Then say it." I didn't answer. The line hissed for a moment, static blooming in my ear. Not the usual kind. It felt thick, like it had weight to it. And then the voice whispered, so faint I almost missed it, come back. That's when Bailey slammed her console's disconnect. The line went dead in my ear. What the hell was that? She said, yanking her headset off. Her voice was too loud in the quiet room. I told her it had to be some kind of tech problem. Feedback loop, cross-line bleed, something. But the words sounded weak even to me. I checked the caller ID. The screen read, private/unknown. Standard for blocked numbers. But the call log showed something else. A note in the system no one had typed, connected internally. Bailey saw it too. She pushed her chair back from the desk, muttering, nope, I'm not doing this tonight. I couldn't tell her, that when I took my headset off, my ears still felt like they were buzzing. Like something had pressed too close for too long. For the rest of the shift, I couldn't shake the feeling that if I answered another call, it would be me again. That whatever it was hadn't hung up at all. I didn't think I'd hear from him again. After that first call, I kept telling myself it was just some elaborate prank. Some tech geek with a voice filter, maybe even someone I knew from the department messing with me. That had to be it. But 2 nights later, it happened again. It was quiet in the room, the way it gets just before midnight. All the chatter gone, the building heavy with that low, constant hum of electronics. The screens were lit with static maps, little blinking icons marking units in the field. And the phone lines were dead. Then the ring. It wasn't urgent, just that steady tone we all know too well. I picked up, my voice running on autopilot. 911, what's your emergency? There was no background noise this time. No traffic, no static, just breathing. Slow, deliberate, like someone leaning right into the receiver. Then the voice came. You're still at my desk. I felt my throat close for a second. I knew that voice, because it was mine. Every syllable, every inflection, it was like hearing a recording of myself, except it was talking in real time. I forced my tone to stay level. Who is this? You know who I am. The way it said it, I could hear the faint rasp I sometimes get after hours of talking, the little hitch I make when I swallow between words. I caught myself before saying it out loud. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. The voice spoke again, low and steady. I'm the real one. I didn't answer right away. My eyes kept darting toward the reflection in the darkened glass in front of my desk. Just me. Headset on. Shoulders tight. You're confused, I said, keeping my voice measured. You got the wrong person. No, it replied instantly, without hesitation. You're the wrong person. There was something in the way it said it that made my skin pull tight. Like it wasn't mocking me. Like it believed it. Completely. Look, I said, trying to break the tension. If you don't have an emergency, I'm going to have to. I do, it cut in. There's someone in my chair. I swallowed hard. It's you, the voice continued. You're sitting where I'm supposed to be. You're wearing my headset. You're taking my calls. My grip tightened on the receiver. I could feel the sweat starting to bead on my palm. Where are you calling from? I asked. There was a pause. Then the answer came, deliberate, from my desk. I didn't say anything. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. It's strange, the voice said, almost musing to itself. Everything looks the same. The same papers. The same coffee cup. The same dent in the armrest. I glanced down at my desk without meaning to. My cup was there, half empty. The papers. The dent. I can see you, the voice whispered. My chest went cold. I turned, scanning the room, but the dispatch center was empty except for me. That's not possible, I said, trying to sound in control. You're breathing fast, the voice murmured. I can hear it. You don't have to be afraid. I just want my place back. My mouth was dry. If you can see me, then where am I? The silence on the line stretched, and for a second, I thought maybe the call had dropped. Then the voice spoke, quiet but clear. You're where I was, and I'm where you're going. A chill ran down my spine, so hard it felt like my bones were buzzing. Why are you doing this? I asked. I'm not doing anything, it said. You're the one doing it. You took my life, my voice, my seat. Now I'm stuck here, watching you pretend to be me. I glanced again at the reflection in the glass. My own eyes stared back at me, wide and pale. I think you should hang up now, I said. There was a faint sound, like someone shifting in a chair. My chair. No, the voice said, sharper now. You should hang up. I froze, because I realized I wasn't sure which of us was holding the phone anymore. I didn't tell anyone that night. I logged the call under prank and went home. But when I lay in bed, I kept replaying the sound of that voice. The way it didn't feel like an imitation. The way it knew things it shouldn't. And the way it made me feel like maybe I was the imitation. The next day, I avoided looking at the glass panel in front of my desk. Normally, it didn't bother me. It's just a faint reflection when the lights are low. But now, every time I caught a glimpse of it, I half expected to see something off. Like maybe my reflection wouldn't move exactly when I did. It was just past 1 a.m. when the line rang again. I knew before I picked up. My hand was already trembling. 911, I said, my voice tight. You sound tired, the voice said immediately. I didn't answer. I've been watching you all night, it went on. You keep looking over your shoulder. You're afraid I'm here. You're right. I swallow, my tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth. What do you want from me? To switch back, the voice said simply. I almost laughed. Switch back? I don't even know what that means. Yes, you do, it replied, calm as ever. You feel it. That slippage. The parts of yourself that don't quite line up anymore. You don't remember the drive here tonight, do you? Or the smell of your own kitchen? Or the sound of your brother's laugh? I froze. Because it was right. I could picture my brother's face. I could even picture him laughing. But the sound, the actual sound, I couldn't hear in my mind. What did you do to me? I whispered. I didn't do anything, the voice said. I'm just waiting. You're the one fading. I'm not fading. I snapped, but it came out weak. Listen to yourself, it murmured. Even your voice doesn't sound the same. I gripped the receiver like I could crush it. You have two choices, it said. You can stay there, and I'll keep watching. Or you can hang up, and I'll come get you. The line clicked dead before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at the silent phone, feeling like I'd just been given a countdown without a number. The rest of that shift, I kept imagining footsteps in the hall, the sound of my own breathing behind me. Every time I checked the glass reflection, I thought I saw my lips moving a split second too late. By morning, I couldn't tell if I was still working or if I was the one stuck on the other side now. The call was over. At least, I thought it was. I sat there, staring at the blinking cursor on my screen, my headset still resting against my ear. My hands were on the desk, palms damp, fingers stiff like they were afraid to move. The line was dead. It had to be. The click had been loud in my ear, final. But the silence that followed didn't feel like silence at all. It was like being in an empty room where you know someone's breathing, but you can't see them. There's a faint presence, a weight to the air, and you keep telling yourself you're imagining it, but you never quite believe that. I swallowed and leaned forward, tapping the end call key just to be sure. The screen confirmed it. Disconnected. Still, I kept the headset on. Maybe it was habit. Or maybe I didn't want to hear what the empty room around me actually sounded like without it. I almost jumped when a voice spoke. Not loud. Not sudden. Just there. Hello. I froze. It wasn't a caller. It wasn't a stranger. It was me. Not my memory, not my thoughts, not my own voice echoing in my head. My actual voice, right in my ear. But it wasn't coming from my mouth. You still there? My skin prickled so hard it hurt. I reached for the volume dial, then stopped halfway. The screen still read, no active call. I should have ripped the headset off right then. I should have gone to my supervisor, told them there was some kind of malfunction, an audio bleed, something. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, listening to myself breathe on the other end of a line that didn't exist. Hey, my voice said again. Don't hang up this time. I opened my mouth to answer, but no sound came out. My throat was tight, like something inside me already knew speaking would be a mistake. The voice kept talking. It wasn't following a script. It wasn't repeating what I'd said earlier. It was saying things I hadn't said, things I hadn't thought yet. You know, it's true, it murmured. I'm the real one. The words were almost casual, but there was an undercurrent, like it was testing me, like it wanted to see how I'd react. I forced myself to push the headset off, the foam ear pads catching on my skin. I set it down carefully, like it was something fragile that might break or bite if I moved too fast. I expected the sound to stop once it wasn't on my ear anymore. It didn't. The voice was faint now, muffled, like it was coming from the far end of a hallway. But it was still coming from the headset on my desk. You think you're safe when you do that. I could feel sweat sliding down my spine. I should have unplugged it. I should have powered down the whole console. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at that piece of plastic and wire like it was a snake coiled up in front of me. The voice, my voice, went on for hours. Sometimes it said nonsense. Strings of words that didn't belong together. North of the blue wall. Don't let the light go out. Your hands don't match. Sometimes it asked me questions, though never the kind I could answer. What if I was sitting where you are? Would you still be you? Which one of us is closer to the truth? And sometimes it repeated words I recognized. Not from earlier that night. Not from any conversation I'd had today. From thoughts I hadn't spoken yet. It would say things I hadn't even thought of until the moment I heard them, like it was plucking them out of the air before they reached me. It was about halfway through my shift when I noticed the pattern. The phrases, it was cycling through them. Slowly, but predictably. And in between those repetitions, it would add a new one, like it was collecting them from me in real time. That's when it hit me. It was building a copy of me, piece by piece. Every word it repeated was a brick, and I could feel the wall going up somewhere I couldn't see. I stopped thinking in full sentences. I thought in fragments, half-formed images, trying not to give it anything clear enough to steal. That's when it laughed. Just once. A short, ugly burst that sounded like my laugh if someone had taken it apart and put it back together wrong. You can't help it, it said softly. You're always talking. I couldn't take it anymore. I yanked the plug from the console, the cord whipping against my knuckles. The headset went dead instantly, the faint hiss of static cutting off mid-breath. The relief was so sharp I almost laughed myself. But then I saw the light. The little green call indicator, the one that only lights up when a line is active, it was still on. The display still read, no active call. And yet the light stayed. Steady. Watching. I stared at it for a long time. I don't know why I didn't just walk away. I think part of me needed to see what would happen next. It was nearly 3 a.m. when the light finally went out. No sound. No click. Just darkness where it had been. I thought that was the end of it, until my next call came in. It was routine at first. A noise complaint. A woman who thought her neighbor was banging on the walls to annoy her. I was halfway through taking her address when she said something that made my stomach turn over. You sound different, she said slowly. I asked what she meant. Like you're tired. Or older. She hesitated. Or maybe it's not you at all. I told her it was try to keep my voice steady, but she kept talking over me. I called earlier, she said. You sounded sharper then. But this voice, I don't know. It's not the same. I pulled up her call history. No previous calls from her tonight. When I told her that, she went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, almost in a whisper, I didn't say it was tonight. The line went dead. When I checked the recording later, there was nothing. Just silence where her voice should have been. But underneath that silence, if you turn the volume all the way up, you could hear breathing. My breathing. Only slower. Only wrong. And now I can't stop wondering. When that voice on the line finally hung up, which one of us was it? It started on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday you don't remember for any reason, until something makes it stick in your head forever. I was halfway through a cup of stale coffee when the call came in. 911, what's your emergency? The line was loud with the sound of breathing at first, the kind where you can almost feel the heat of it in your ear. Then, a man's voice broke through. It's my house, he said, words tumbling out in a panic. It's on fire. Oh my God, it's everywhere. I sat up straighter, scribbling the address as fast as he gave it. County Line Road. Out past the highway. The rural area. Not a lot of people around that stretch, except for maybe a few scattered homes and barns. I could hear crackling in the background, and a woman yelling something I couldn't make out. His voice was shaking so bad, I had to ask him to repeat half of it. Sir, I've got units on the way. Get everyone outside. Is anyone trapped? There was a pause. Then he said, I don't think so. I can't find my wife. And that's when the line went dead. No click. No goodbye. Just nothing. I hate when that happens, when the call ends before you're ready. It leaves this weight in your chest, like you just cut the wrong wire and don't know if the bomb's going to blow. I routed the info to dispatch, and within seconds, fire units were moving. The operators next to me kept working like nothing had happened. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, voices steady and calm. 15 minutes later, I was still staring at the blinking cursor on my notes, wondering if his wife made it out, when another line lit up. 911, what's your emergency? The voice that answered. It was him. It's my house, he said. Same tone, same panic, same words. It's on fire. Oh my God, it's everywhere. For a second, I thought maybe the fire had spread, or something had gone wrong, or maybe he was just calling back to give more information. But as he spoke, something twisted in my stomach. It wasn't just the same story. It was the same call. County Line Road. He rattled off, same shaky breaths between words. The crackle in the background was identical. The woman's muffled yell. Exactly the same pitch and timing. Even the way his voice broke on the word everywhere, it was identical. I don't mean similar. I mean, I could have put the two calls side by side, and they would have matched down to the millisecond. I cut in. Sir, I've already dispatched units. But before I could finish, he spoke over me. Sir, I've got units on the way. Get everyone outside. Is anyone trapped? It was my voice. Not like he was repeating my words. It was me. My tone, my pacing, my hesitation. And then, just like before, he said, I don't think so. I can't find my wife. Click. Line dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand like it was going to explain itself. When I pulled up the logs, both calls were marked as separate entries. Different times. 15 minutes apart. But the audio? It was the same. And the thing is, nobody else seemed to care. I tried asking the supervisor if maybe it was a glitch in the system. He shrugged and said maybe the guy called back and panicked, repeated himself. But that wasn't what happened. I knew it. The second call didn't just repeat what he said, it repeated what I said. Down to the inflection. Down to the pauses I didn't even remember taking until I heard them again. You don't forget something like that. By the time the fire crews checked in, I was hanging on every word. I needed them to tell me something normal, that the fire was out, that they found the wife, that the world was still the world. But what I got instead was static. County Line Road is clear, one of the captains finally said. Well, there's no fire here. I thought maybe they'd gone to the wrong address, so I confirmed it. He read it back to me, same one the caller gave. And yet nothing. No smoke, no flames. Just a dark, quiet farmhouse with a broken porch light. The crew did a sweep. No one was inside. No one was outside. And no one in the surrounding area had seen or smelled a fire. The captain's voice sounded different when he checked in again. Lower, like he didn't want the others to hear him. Control. You sure this call came in tonight? I said yes. Twice. But even after the crew returned, I kept thinking about the voice on the other end of the line. If he wasn't there, where was he calling from? And how the hell did he know exactly what I was going to say before I even said it? The rest of the night, my headset felt heavier. My own voice in my ears sounded strange, like I was listening to a recording of myself instead of speaking in real time. Every time the phone rang, my pulse kicked. My hands hovered over the keyboard like maybe the next one would repeat too. And when the next call finally did come in, I felt it before I even picked up. That weight. That sharp, quiet dread that says this one isn't going to be normal. 911, what's your emergency? Breathing. It's my house. It's on fire. Oh my God, it's everywhere. Same voice. Same words. And I swear I could hear my heart in my ears when I answered, because now I knew what was coming next. County Line Road. I said before he could. Silence. Then in my exact voice, he said County Line Road. I didn't notice the clocks at first. When you're in dispatch, you learn to tune things out. The steady hum of the air conditioner, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, even the constant tick of the wall clocks. You live inside the calls, not the room. But that night, they were impossible to ignore. It was about 40 minutes after the house fire call. The first one. By then, the crews were on scene, hosing it down, reporting smoke damage, no casualties. I'd already typed up the incident log and was drinking my third cup of lukewarm coffee. The second fire call, the exact same address, exact same words, had been reported and dispatched just 15 minutes later. No changes, no deviation. At first, I chalked it up to a prank or a radio misfire. These things happen. The job is full of crossed wires and people with nothing better to do than dial 911 for attention. But something about the voice in that second call stuck with me. The breathless panic. the way it quivered, and most of all, the way it sounded like it was meant for me. I was typing up the follow-up when my eyes wandered, not out of curiosity, but because my brain was stalling, waiting for the next call to come in. They drifted to the clock above my desk. 3:07 a.m. I remember because that's usually the dead hour, when the radio is quiet, when you're more worried about keeping your eyes open than saving lives. But when the next call came in, just a routine welfare check, and I hung up, the clock still read 3:07 a.m. I frowned. It wasn't unusual for the clocks to be a minute or two off, especially the old analog one above my head. But then I glanced over at Mary's desk. She had a little battery-powered digital clock she kept by her monitor next to a bowl of peppermint candies. 3:07 a.m. I could see the numbers glowing faintly in the darkened dispatch room. Then my eyes went to the far wall, where the big wall clock, the one maintenance swore they checked monthly, ticked silently, both hands frozen just past the 3. "Mary," I said without thinking, "what time you got?" She looked over, squinting at me like I'd asked her the square root of something. Same as you." 3:07. She picked up her phone to check, like she didn't trust her own clock. Her face shifted. "That's weird," she muttered. "What?" I asked. "My phone says it's 3:07 too. But it's been 3:07 for the last." She trailed off, staring at the screen like she was trying to make the numbers change with her eyes. No, that's not possible." We both sat there in silence for a moment, listening to the faint hiss of the open radio channel. Then the phone rang. The same ringtone. The same sharp, piercing sound that cuts through every conversation, every thought. I grabbed it automatically, headset snug against my ear. 911, what's your emergency? And just like before, I heard the voice. The same words. There's a fire at 1824 Mayfield Road. Please, you have to hurry. I didn't interrupt. I didn't tell them we'd already sent someone. I just listened, my hand tightening on the desk. Because I knew. It was the same call, the same inflection, the same tremble on the word please. Units are en route, I said, my voice tight. Stay on the line. But just like before, the line went dead. Mary stared at me from across the room. Don't tell me. Same call, I said. She swore under her breath. The radios crackled with chatter from the crews at Mayfield. Negative. No active fire. Structure stable. Minor charring from earlier incident. No signs of reignition. I didn't even answer. My eyes were on the clock. Still 3:07. The room felt wrong. Not cold. Not hot. Just wrong. Like the air was thicker. I stood up, my chair rolling back into the desk. I checked the break room clock. 3:07. The one above the vending machine. 3:07. Even the microwave display. It was like every piece of timekeeping in the building had been frozen in the same instant. But the calls kept coming. Domestic dispute. Drunk driver. Suspicious person. All normal stuff. All logged in the system. But every time I glanced up, the glowing numbers were the same. After the 5th or 6th call, Mary stopped answering. She just sat there, elbows on the desk, staring at the clock like she was trying to memorize it. Do you think, she whispered, it's still moving somewhere? Just not here. I wanted to laugh it off. Tell her she was being dramatic. But I couldn't, because in my gut, I knew she might be right. Another call came in. I took it. A noise complaint. Logged it. Hung up. Checked the clock. Still 3:07. I thought about stepping outside, just to see. But the phones never stop, and we can't both leave the floor. So I sat there, listening, waiting, and then it rang again. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fire at 1824 Mayfield Road. Please, you have to hurry. I didn't answer right away. I just closed my eyes and listened. Word for word, breath for breath. My fingers went numb. When I finally hung up, I looked over at Mary. Her face was pale, and she was shaking her head slowly. We're not in it anymore, she said. In what? I asked. Time. The radios hissed again. The crews were wrapping up other calls. The chatter was normal. Everything outside sounded fine. But inside, it felt like we were caught in something else. Something that didn't care what the rest of the world was doing. I don't remember how long we sat like that. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. The clock never changed. And the calls never stopped. The only thing that did was just that I don't remember standing up, but I was on my feet when the call came in. The console lit up in that same sharp green flash, the one I'd already started to hate tonight. The headset was in my hand before I even thought about it. 911, what's your emergency? At first, there was only static, not the soft, white noise of an empty line. This was deeper, thicker, like someone had pressed a microphone into a roaring fire. The low crackle almost swallowed the sound of breathing. And then the words came. Help me, please. I froze, not because of the words, but because of the voice. It was mine, exactly mine. The pitch, the rhythm, the way the vowels dragged a little at the end. Even the shaky inhale before speaking. It was the same way I breathe when I'm panicked. I knew my own voice, and it was screaming at me from somewhere inside that burning noise. It's getting worse, the voice said. You have to send someone? Oh, God, please. I didn't respond. Not at first. I just stood there, feeling my heartbeat climbing into my throat. It wasn't like hearing a recording. This wasn't tinny or distant. It was like I was talking into a mirror that somehow echoed back pain instead of sound. Finally, I managed to speak. Who is this? The breathing on the other end grew louder, faster. You know who I am. I felt my stomach pull tight. The sound of wood groaning came through, like beams snapping in heat. Somewhere in that noise, I could swear I heard my own footsteps. This is a joke, right? My voice cracked. Tell me where you are. I told you. The house. The fire. A cough ripped through there my throat. The kind of cough you feel in your ribs. My eyes darted to the wall clock. Still stuck at 3:07 a.m. Hadn't moved an inch. I sent help already, I said, but the words didn't sound convincing even to me. There was no siren in the background, no sign of anyone coming. Only fire and my own voice burning alive. The me on the other end started screaming. Not words, just raw sound. The kind that cuts right through you because you can hear the exact moment a person realizes they aren't getting out. It was my scream, and I knew exactly what my face looked like while making it because I've seen it in nightmares. I pulled the headset away, but the scream didn't stop. It leaked into the room, muffled but still so sharp that my teeth hurt. When I looked back down, the call timer on the console was at midnight. The line was dead. I sat there, gripping the armrest, trying to figure out how I could have hurt myself. It wasn't possible. Maybe someone had pulled old audio from a training exercise, or maybe there was some glitch replaying earlier calls. But I hadn't screamed like that in any training. And this wasn't earlier. This was now. I leaned back, scanning the empty room. Dispatch was usually filled with some kind of noise, other operators talking, printers whirring, chairs rolling, but tonight, it was just me, and the dead hum of the fluorescent lights. The memory of the first fire call clawed its way back into my mind. Then the second one. Both of them identical, both from that same address. Now this, the third time, and the voice was me. It was almost funny in a sick way. 3 calls, 3 times I'd picked up, and the timeline in the room still hadn't moved past 3:07 a.m. If I hadn't been watching the seconds on the console tick forward during the call, I'd think nothing in the world was moving at all. The ringing started again. I didn't want to answer it. I wanted to rip the headset out, shut the console down, maybe even smash the whole thing with the fire extinguisher sitting by the door. But my hand moved anyway. 911, what's your... The rest of the sentence died in my throat. Because now, the sound wasn't just fire. It was the sound of my own headset clattering to the floor. The echo of the chair scraping back. The same thing's happening right now, only coming from the other end. And then, don't hang up. It was still my voice, but lower, quieter, like I was standing in the middle of the burning house, speaking through clenched teeth. What is this? I asked, and my voice on the other end laughed. Look out the window. I didn't move. My eyes stayed locked on the blank console screen, on the little pulse of the incoming signal. I said, look, something in me shifted, like my brain had already decided it was easier to obey than fight. I turned in my chair toward the long, narrow window by the far wall. The glass reflected my own face back at me. Pale, eyes too wide, headset crooked, and behind me, in the reflection, the clock on the wall wasn't stuck anymore. It was moving backwards. Slow. 1 second at a time. The reflection flickered. For just a moment, the me in the glass wasn't sitting. I was standing, skin blackened with soot, lips cracked, clothes burned to threads. Mouth open, still screaming. I spun around. The clock was still there, still frozen at 3:07. No burned version of me in sight. Just the quiet, humming room. The line went dead. I didn't answer the next call, or the one after that. But the console kept flashing, over and over. Same number, same address. And I swear, even without putting on the headset, I could still hear it. My voice from somewhere deep in that house, still begging for help that wasn't coming that I didn't hear the sirens at first. It's strange. You spend enough years in dispatch, and you learn to pick them out even through walls, rain, or static. But that night, if it even was night anymore, there was just this soft hiss in my ears, like the room was filled with the sound of a match right before it flares. The last thing I remember before that hiss started was sending our guys to the scene again. Same coordinates, same voice on the line. My voice, screaming. Only this time, I'd frozen after hanging up. Not because it was another repeat call, but because I realized something. With a scream cut off on that call, I felt in my own throat, like my windpipe had seized. Like for a second, I was the one choking on the smoke. And when I touched my neck, my hand came back shaking. The hiss grew louder. I glanced at the clock, still stuck at 3:07 a.m. Every clock in here had been like that for, God, I don't know, hours? Days. But it didn't matter anymore. The air smelled different. Not the sharp tang of burnt wires from a bad outlet. Not the faint, bitter hint of coffee left on the warmer too long. This was heavier, thicker, like the room itself was smoldering, but no one had lit a fire. Then the radio crackled. At first, I thought it was background chatter from the fire crew on scene. But the voice was too close, too direct. Dispatch, we're here. It was Will's voice, Captain Will Douglas, 20 years in service, never once lost a man. His tone was wrong, though. Hesitant, almost apologetic. I grabbed the mic. Copy, Engine 4, what's the situation? Silence. Then a shuffle. A low, breathy word. You're not going to like this. I swallowed hard. Report. Another pause. We've arrived at the address. Structure fires fully involved. No signs of anyone making it out. I started logging, muscle memory kicking in. But Will's voice cut in again, sharper. So we got one confirmed inside. Okay. Description. My pen hovered. There was no answer at first. Just that hiss again. Louder now. Then, clear as day. It's you. I froze. Repeat last, Engine 4. It's you, dispatch. Sitting at your desk. Wearing that headset. Watching us through the glass. I looked up, instinctively glancing toward the front windows of the dispatch center. But all I saw was my own reflection in the black glass. The reflection wasn't moving right, though. My head tilted in the glass a fraction before I actually moved. Will, I said carefully, confirm your location. County Dispatch Office. This place is burning down, but you're still in here. I'm watching you. Something in my chest went cold. The hiss in my ears deepened into a roar, like standing under a bridge while a freight train screams past. I pulled off my headset, but the sound didn't fade. Engine 4, you're mistaken. I tried, though my voice sounded wrong even to me. I'm here at my post. There's no fire. The smell hit me then. Not just smoke now, heat. The kind that makes your teeth ache. It rolled over me in a wave, and the air shimmered near the corners of the room. I stood up fast, chair rolling back. My legs felt slow, like I was moving through water. The console under my fingertips was warm. Dispatch. Will's voice again. Flat. Certain. We can see the flames in your window. I turned toward the glass at the far end of the office. At first, I thought the reflection was just catching the red light from somewhere outside. But then the glow shifted. It was moving, alive, crawling up the sides of the frame like fingers. Get out of there, Will said. I moved toward the door, but the hallway beyond looked wrong. Thick shadows clinging to the walls like wet paint. And underneath them, shapes twisting, jerking like they were caught in some loop I couldn't see the start or end of. The phone rang. Not the headset this time. The old landline in the corner we never used. The ring was sharp, metallic. Too fast. Too insistent. Without thinking, I picked it up and heard myself. Not screaming. Not this time. Just breathing. Slow, ragged, wet breaths. Then a whisper. You didn't get out. My hand went numb. The phone slid from my grip and clattered to the floor. Somewhere outside, boots pounded. Muffled shouts. I could see shapes in the glow now, firefighters moving toward the glass. But their movements were jerky, like each step was a skipped frame in some broken film reel. I banged on the window. "Will, I'm here." One of them turned his head toward me, and in the flicker of the flames, his face wasn't Will's. It was mine. Every detail. The scar above my left brow from when I was 12. The half-healed split in my lower lip from biting it last week. He raised a gloved hand and pressed it to the glass. So did I. The heat surged. The walls shimmered harder. Paint bubbled and split in tiny bursts, popping like dry knuckles. I stepped back, because behind the figure wearing my face, there was another me. And another. Layer after layer of my own face, stretching back into the glow, each one screaming silently. The glass started to crack. "Dispatch." Will's voice, maybe real, maybe not, yelled from somewhere far away. "We're pulling you out." I spun toward the door again, but it wasn't a hallway anymore. It was the same burning room they claimed they'd found. My desk was there, headset still on the chair, monitors melting down into puddles. And in that chair, slumped forward over the console, was me. The skin was blackened in patches, split in others. The headset cord was fused to the side of the face. My mouth opened, but the roar of the fire swallowed everything. The figure in the chair lifted its head and smiled. I don't remember moving after that. Just a burst of white heat, and then nothing. No smoke, no fire, no sirens. Just the office, silent. The clock still at 3:07 a.m. I was back in my seat, headset on, staring at the same dark glass. The phone rang. I didn't want to answer. My hand shook as I reached for it, anyway. And when I picked up, I didn't hear breathing or screaming. I heard my own voice say, "County Dispatch, what's your emergency?" But the words kept going, even though my mouth didn't move. And on the other end, the voice laughed. Not like me. Not like anything human. Low, guttural, stretching each sound until it almost broke. Then, third time's done. No time left. The line went dead. Somewhere far off, the siren started again. And this time, they were coming for me that I was 3 weeks into the job when I found it. You know how people talk about finding something you weren't supposed to see? How there's this split second where your brain says turn away, but your hands keep moving anyway. That was me. It was a slow shift. Midday, fluorescent lights humming, the stale smell of burnt coffee in the air. I've been assigned to clean out the back storage room, the one nobody ever really goes into unless we're low on printer paper or headset batteries. The place was a mess. Piles of old binders, stacks of dusty keyboards, cardboard boxes sagging under their own weight. I was halfway through clearing a shelf when I noticed it. A plain, beat-up banker's box shoved all the way to the back, hidden behind a broken paper shredder. No label, no markings, just a thin layer of dust and a faint water stain along the side, like it had been sitting there for years. I don't know why, but I felt weird about it, like it had been deliberately placed out of sight. I pulled it out anyway. The cardboard gave this faint, dry crackle as I lifted the lid. Inside, cassette tapes. Dozens of them. Black, unmarked, except for tiny strips of yellowing masking tape on each one, with dates scribbled in faded pen. Some from the early 90s. Others as recent as 2 years ago. I'd never seen cassettes used for call logs before. By the time I joined, everything was digital, archived on secure servers, tagged, searchable. But these, they weren't in the system. I checked. Not one of the dates matched any recorded incident. No case files. No audio transcripts. It was like these calls never happened. I sat there for a minute, kneeling on the floor, staring at them. I told myself I was just curious, that I was killing time until lunch. But underneath, there was this prickling unease I couldn't shake. I picked one, the oldest, 1993. The masking tape label read only, July 14th. There was an old tape deck on the shelf, probably used back when we still recorded manually. I dusted it off, plugged it in, and pressed play. The first thing I heard was breathing. Slow, heavy. Then, a faint voice, female, trembling. Is this the police? I froze. Another voice answered. A dispatcher. Calm, professional. Yes, ma'am. What's your emergency? The woman's breathing quickened. He's in the house. I saw him. By the stairs. But when I went to call, he was gone. Please, you have to send someone. The dispatcher asked for her address. There was a pause. Then, I don't know. It's not my house. The hair on my arms rose. The dispatcher kept asking questions. Her name, how she got there, whether she could leave. But the woman's answers, they didn't make sense. She didn't know what town she was in. She didn't remember how she got there. The call ended suddenly. Not with a click, but with a deep, hollow sound, like the mic had been pressed into someone's chest, and then silence. I sat there staring at the deck, my finger hovering over rewind. What the hell was that? I played another tape. This one was from 2001. A man's voice this time. Panicked. It's not stopping. I shut off the main breaker. I took the batteries out of every clock, but it's still there. Sir, what's still there? The ticking. The dispatcher tried to keep him calm, asked about his location. But the man just kept repeating it. The ticking, it's in the walls, it's under the floor, it's getting louder. And then, something else came through. Not a voice. Not exactly. But there was a faint rhythmic sound in the background. Not quite a clock tick. More like fingernails tapping on wood. The tape ended mid-sentence. By then, I'd forgotten all about the storage room. About the mess I was supposed to clean. I went through 5 more tapes. Each one was worse than the last. Calls from people claiming to see things that couldn't be there. Hear voices in places no one could reach. Smell things that didn't exist. One caller whispered for 3 straight minutes about a shadow under her bed that breathed with her. Another swore there was someone inside his reflection, moving after he did. And every single one of these calls gone from the official records. No case reports. No follow-ups. Nothing. Like the people who made them had never existed. I kept telling myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe they were prank calls. Training exercises. Maybe someone just forgot to label them properly in the archive. But if that was true, why hide them? I checked the box again, digging to the bottom. That's when I found it. Beneath the last layer of tapes, a single manila envelope. Inside, one photograph. It was a black and white print, slightly curled at the edges. The image was grainy, but I could make out a row of desks. Headsets. A wall clock frozen at 3:07. And in the far corner, someone standing. They were facing the camera. But their face, it wasn't blurred exactly. Just wrong. Like the features didn't line up. The eyes were too far apart. The mouth was too wide. I stared at it for a long time, trying to figure out if it was some kind of double exposure. But the longer I looked, the more I felt like they were looking back. I put the photo back in the envelope and shoved it into the bottom of the box. I told myself I'd ask about it later, that maybe one of the older dispatchers would know where it came from. But when I went back to my desk, the box wasn't on the floor anymore. I thought maybe I'd left it in the storage room, so I went back. It wasn't there either. The broken shredder was still against the wall. The empty space where the box had been was now filled with 2 stacks of printer paper. I even checked the shelf where I'd found the tape deck. The deck was gone too. I stood there for a while, feeling stupid. It had only been, half an hour? Maybe 40 minutes? I asked around casually, but nobody knew what I was talking about. Or at least, that's what they said. Later that night, just before I left, I found a single cassette sitting on my chair. No box, no label, just a strip of masking tape on one side, with today's date written in fresh ink. I didn't take it home. I didn't play it. I put it in my locker, shut the door, and told myself I'd pretend I never saw it. But now, every night since, when the room's quiet and the hum of the servers fades, I swear I can hear something faint coming from inside my locker. A slow, steady tapping, like fingernails. I didn't mean to listen to more of them. After the first couple of tapes from that box, I told myself I'd stop. I told myself it wasn't my job, that they weren't even in our system for a reason. But the thing is, once you've heard something you can't explain, you start needing more of it, like you're scratching a scab you know will bleed. The first 6 tapes had been bad enough. Distorted voices. Screams that cut off mid-word. One call where I swear I could hear laughing somewhere far behind the caller. But the 7th one, I wish I'd never played it. It was a Tuesday night. Quiet shift. Just me, a pot of burnt coffee, and a little portable cassette player I'd been using to check the tapes when no one else was around. I'd been working dispatch for 3 months by then, still the rookie to everyone else. I didn't fit in with the veterans. They all had this shell over them. The way they'd hang up after some of the worst calls you could imagine, then just go right back to chatting about their kids or weekend plans. I couldn't do that yet. I still carried the voices home with me. The archive box was under my desk now. I kept telling myself I'd hand it over to Captain Morris or at least put it back where I found it, but my hand kept going to it when the room got too quiet. And that night, it was too quiet. I remember brushing my fingers over the spines of the tapes. Most were labeled in that shaky handwriting, dates from the late 90s. But tape number 7 was different. No date, no label, just #7 written in faded red marker. The cassette itself felt warm. I told myself that was impossible. I popped it in. The tape hissed for a second, then there was nothing but dead air. I thought maybe it was blank, maybe it had been mislabeled. Then a faint click, and a voice. Hello. It was a man. Middle-aged, maybe. Calm. Too calm. Yeah, this is going to sound strange, he said, but I need you to stay on the line. Something about the way he said you. It wasn't like he was talking to a dispatcher. It was like he was talking to me. Personally. Sir, what's your emergency? Came the dispatcher's voice on the tape. It was a woman, not anyone I recognized from our current team. The man let out this slow exhale, like he was steadying himself. I'm looking at you right now. There was a pause on the recording. What? The woman asked. I see you, the man repeated. Right now, sitting at your desk. You've got black headphones on. Your chair is squeaking every time you move. You got a coffee cup next to you? White with a chip in the rim. I froze, because I was wearing black headphones, and my chair did squeak, and my coffee cup, the one sitting next to me, was white with a little chip in the rim. I told myself it was a coincidence. I told myself I was just overlaying my own reality onto some 20-year-old recording. But then the man kept going. You've got the box open on your lap right now, he said, and you're listening to me. My throat tightened. I actually looked down at my lap, like maybe there was another explanation. The box was there. The 7th tape was playing. My legs felt cold. The dispatcher on the tape. She was trying to redirect him. Sir, I'm not sure what you... You just looked down, the man interrupted. At the box. You think I can't see that? The hair on my arm stood up. It didn't make sense. This tape was recorded over 2 decades ago. The woman he was talking to wasn't me. But the details, my movements were exact. I pulled off my headphones just to breathe for a second, but the words kept bleeding out of the tiny player's speaker. You're wearing a gray sweater, the man said. You've got a pen in your right hand. You keep tapping it when you're nervous. Stop doing that. My pen was in my hand. I hadn't even realized I'd been tapping it until he said it. I dropped it like it burned me. The dispatcher's voice was shaking now. Where are you calling from? The man laughed, short, quiet, like he was enjoying something private. I'm already here. There was a sudden scrape on the tape, like the phone being dragged across a desk. And for a second, the sound warped, slowed down, like the tape itself didn't want to keep playing. I know you're thinking this is impossible, the man said, but you're going to hear me again. Not just on this tape, on others. And when you do, you'll know I've been watching longer than you think. The dispatcher said something I couldn't make out. Then 3 knocks. Loud, deliberate. Not on her end. On mine. I froze, staring at the dark hallway outside the dispatch room. The sound hadn't come from the tape. It had come from just outside my door. I stopped the tape. The room went dead quiet. My breathing sounded too loud. I told myself it was the building settling, maybe a janitor. But I couldn't make my feet move to check. After a long minute, I pressed play again, half hoping the rest of the recording would be corrupted, blank, anything but his voice. But he was still there. Don't look, he said suddenly, and my chest locked up. You won't see me if you look. You'll only make it worse. The dispatcher was whispering now. Why are you doing this? Because, the man said, you found the box. The tape ended right there. No click. No static. Just silence, so deep, I thought the player had died. I sat there, staring at it, my hands shaking so badly I could hear my nails clicking against the plastic. I didn't rewind it. I didn't even take the cassette out. I just closed the player and slid the whole thing, tape still inside, into my desk drawer. The rest of the night, every time the phone rang, I felt like it was going to be him. I caught myself glancing at the corners of the room, at the narrow hallway leading to storage, at the glass window where someone could stand and watch without me noticing. When my shift ended, I told myself I was leaving it all at work. I walked out into the night air, keys in my fist like a weapon, scanning the parking lot. My car felt too far away. Every shadow felt too still. When I finally got in and locked the doors, I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, just breathing. That's when I noticed the chip in my coffee cup, my personal one from home, the one I kept in my car for morning shifts. The chip was on the opposite side now, like someone had turned it while I wasn't looking. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after, because I kept thinking about what he said, about how I'd hear him again, and about how, somehow, even on a recording from 20 years ago, he had been right. He was already here, I didn't plan to listen to it that night. Honestly, I didn't even plan on staying in the dispatch room past my shift. I've been getting worse about that lately, lingering, staring at the wall of shelves where that dusty box of tapes sat. Like if I looked at them long enough, maybe the whole thing would start to make sense. It never did. 6 tapes in, and all I'd gotten was a headache and a deeper pit in my stomach. But that 7th one, the one where he described me, had done something to me I couldn't shake. It wasn't just creepy. It wasn't just wrong. It felt like someone had crawled inside my life, folded themselves between my thoughts, and made themselves at home. I kept thinking, if he can describe me, maybe he can see me. The blank tape sat at the bottom of the box. No number, no label. Just a strip of masking tape along the front with a faint fingerprint smudged into it. It felt heavier than the others when I held it. I told myself I wouldn't listen to it until the morning, that I'd take it home, maybe, that I'd hear it in the safety of daylight. But the room was quiet, the station half empty, and I couldn't stop looking at it. So I slid into the player. For the first few seconds, there was nothing but static. Not even a normal kind of static. This felt thicker, muffled, like listening through layers of wet cloth. Then I heard it, breathing, slow, shaky, too close to the microphone. It took me about 3 seconds to recognize it, my own breathing. I don't mean it sounded like mine. I mean I knew, in that instinctive, skin-crawling way, that it was mine. The way you know your own laugh in a crowd. The way you can hear yourself on a voicemail and feel a strange twist in your stomach. Only this wasn't a recording of me from years ago. I was breathing like that right now. I froze. My hand hovered over the stop button, but I didn't press it, because my breathing on the tape kept matching mine. Every inhale, every exhale, perfectly. I leaned back in my chair and held my breath, just to prove myself wrong. And on the tape, the breathing stopped too. A cold, numb feeling spread through my chest. I let the air out slow. On the tape, it came out slow. It wasn't possible. I looked around the room. The corners looked darker than usual, like the shadows had grown teeth. I told myself this was just some weird trick, maybe a feed from the station's mic, some tech glitch. But deep down, I knew this wasn't live audio. This was supposed to be 20 years old. For almost a full minute, it was just breathing, mine circling back at me through the static. And then, something else joined in. It was faint at first, buried in the hiss. Almost too soft to notice. A second set of breaths. Not quite matching mine. Those were just a little slower, a little deeper. The kind of breathing you hear from someone trying to stay calm. Someone close enough to smell your skin. I sat forward, staring at the player like I could make sense of it if I looked hard enough. The sound of my headphones felt heavy. It filled the room. It filled me. The second breather kept going. In, out, in, out. And then I realized something. Their breathing wasn't coming from my side of the tape. It wasn't in the past. It was in the room with me now. I pulled the headphones off so fast they clattered to the desk. Silence. The only sound was my heart pounding in my ears. I looked around again, slower this time. My chair creaked. The fluorescent light above me buzzed, like it was straining to stay lit. The hallway outside was empty, but I swear the air felt thicker, like I just stepped into a space someone else had been holding for a very long time. I put the headphones back on. The breathing was still there. Both of us. I leaned closer to the player, my voice barely above a whisper. Who's there? I don't know why I expected an answer, but something shifted. The second breather inhaled sharply, like I'd startled them. Then nothing. For a few long seconds, it was just me again, just my breathing echoing back through the tape. And then, quietly, almost buried in the static, came a voice. It wasn't a word. Not really. Just a sound, shaped like the start of one. Low, raspy, wet, like it was passing through a throat that hadn't swallowed in years. And it was right next to my ear. I shot out of my chair, so fast it slammed into the wall behind me. The headphones yanked off my head and swung from the cord, still hissing faint static. The tape kept playing. I didn't want to hear the rest. I told myself I was done, that this wasn't worth it, that I'd burn the damn thing if I had to. But I couldn't stop watching the player. The counter ticked forward. 00:02:14. 00:02:15. 00:02:16. And then I heard it again. No headphones. No speakers. The breathing. Right behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My legs felt rooted to the floor, like if I moved, whatever was there would too. I just stood there, staring at the player, while the sound in the room matched the sound on the tape. Then, the second breather started talking. The words were wrong. Not loud enough to be clear, not quiet enough to ignore. They were muttered, almost like they were telling me a secret. But the tone was how you talk to someone you've been watching for a long time. Someone you finally got close enough to touch. I think my knees buckled because I ended up in the chair again without realizing I'd sat down. I pressed my hands to my ears. The sound didn't stop. The voice was inside. Not my head, exactly, but close. Like hearing your own thoughts in someone else's accent. It said my name, not the name on my badge. My real name, the one only my family uses. I don't know how long I sat like that, hands over my ears, shaking, while my own name crawled into me from both the tape and the empty air around me. Eventually, the tape clicked off. The room was silent. I thought maybe I'd imagined all of it, that I'd had some kind of panic attack, and my brain had filled in the blanks. But then I saw the player's counter. Midnight. It hadn't just stopped. It had rewound. And before I could reach for the power switch, it started playing again. Breathing. Mine. Perfectly in time. And somewhere in the static, so faint I almost missed it, the other breathing was still there, waiting that it was one of those nights where the station felt heavier than usual. No storms. No real emergencies. Just the low hum of the computers and the faint crackle of static from the radios. Sometimes that quiet was worse than chaos. You start noticing little things, the clock ticking too loud, the sound of your own breathing in the headset, the way the fluorescent lights buzz like an insect trapped in glass. I was halfway through my coffee when the call came in. No ringtone, no warning. Just click, and then breathing. Not rushed or panicked at first. Just a steady inhale, exhale, like someone trying to calm themselves down. I almost said the standard line, 911, what's your emergency? But something in my gut made me wait. Then he spoke. She's right above me. The voice was barely a whisper. Male, mid-30s, maybe, but it was the way he said it that made my skin tighten, like he wasn't supposed to be talking at all. I leaned forward in my chair. Sir, what's your location? He gave me an address without hesitation. I typed it into the system. While the database loaded, I asked, can you tell me what's happening? She's crawling. His voice trembled, and I could hear the soft creak of wood in the background. Up in the ceiling, I can hear her palms dragging, fingernails scratching the beams. I felt a cold ripple go down my back. You mean like in your attic? No. His whisper sharpened. I don't have an attic. There's no crawl space up there. My eyes flicked to the database screen. The address had popped up. It was a single-level home. No second floor. No attic. No space above the ceiling except insulation and rafters. Sir, are you inside a closet or something? I asked, hoping maybe he was in a strange part of the house where sounds echoed oddly. I'm in my bedroom. His breath hitched. The ceiling's 3 feet above my head. It's hollow. She's moving slow, like she's trying not to be heard. I heard it then, faint, through the call, like something shifting. Not a footstep, more like a body dragging itself forward. A weight shifting across beams. I lower my voice. Is anyone else in the house with you? No one's supposed to be here. The way he said it made my chest feel tight. Another sound came through, barely audible over his breathing. A soft, deliberate thump. Then a pause. Then another thump. It was moving. How long has this been happening? I asked. Since I went to bed. I thought it was the wind at first, but then his voice broke. She whispered my name. I froze. She said your name? Yes. Exactly like my mother used to. But my mother's been dead for 10 years. My headset suddenly felt too hot against my ear. I typed quickly, sending the call to dispatch for an officer to check the location. Sir, I've got someone on the way. Okay? Stay on the line with me. He didn't answer right away. His breathing grew shallower. Then, so soft I almost missed it, he said. She stopped moving. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. I could hear the faint electrical hum of the line, his breathing, and nothing else. Then a whisper, not his. A woman's voice, right against the phone's microphone. You're awake. I nearly dropped the headset. Sir, get out of the house right now. She's right above me, he said again, but his voice was different, far away, like he wasn't speaking directly into the phone anymore. Do you understand me? I pushed my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. You need to get outside. The faint creak returned, louder now. The sound of something heavy shifting in a cramped space. I pulled the address details again, my brain catching on a detail. This house was built in the early 80s. Wood frame, thin drywall. No structural allowance for a person to be in the ceiling. I said his name, trying to keep him talking. No answer. Just the sound of him moving, his footsteps on carpet, the phone rustling against his shirt. Then slam. A single, sharp noise like a fist hitting the ceiling. He sucked in a breath, and I could hear him muttering, Don't look up, don't. Another slam. Sir, where are you now? In the hall, he whispered. His voice was breaking. It's following me. I wanted to tell him he was imagining it. That was a raccoon or a branch scraping the roof. But deep down, I already knew that wasn't true. There was no space up there. I could hear the rhythm of the sound. Slam, drag, slam, matching his pace as he walked. Whatever was above him was moving with him. The line filled with this deep, unnatural groan of what under strain, like the ceiling was bowing under weight. He suddenly gasped. She's faster now. I bit down on my lip. Sir, the officers are. The line popped with static, and he cut me off, his voice rising in a panicked whisper. She's right above me. Then nothing. Just the faint hiss of an open line. I stayed there, listening, my own breathing growing too loud in my ears. Somewhere in the static, I thought I heard movement again, slow, deliberate crawling. Then a sound I still can't explain. It was like someone pressing their mouth against the receiver and taking a long, slow breath in. The line went dead. I stared at the address on the screen until the officers checked back. They said the house was locked from the inside. No sign of forced entry. No one answering the door. They walked the perimeter, shined their flashlights along the roofline. Nothing. The official report said unfounded. But I kept the call logged under my own notes. Because that voice wasn't coming from a man. And I've thought about something since that night. Something I wish I hadn't. If there was no space above him, then where exactly was she? I didn't think much of it at first. The sound, it was just faint, soft, like the dull shift of wood when a building settles. Except it was too deliberate. It happened in pauses. Not constant creaks, not the random groans of a roof in the summer heat. It was paced, like something was moving, and it was right above my head. That's the part one, keep replaying. It didn't start until maybe an hour after the call from the man in the crawl space. The call where he whispered that someone was up there with him, crawling, even though the building he was in had no crawl space at all. We sent officers. They cleared the place. Nothing. End of story. Except apparently it wasn't. It was a little after 2 a.m. when Officer Lane came back into the dispatch room. He still had his flashlight clipped to his vest, his hair messy from the damp air outside. He wasn't in a rush, but he didn't look relaxed either. He just stood there for a second, letting his eyes adjust to the dim lights we keep on at night. Got a sec, he asked. I waved him over, sliding my headset down around my neck. Find something. He looked around, the whole room, like he was checking if anyone else was here, and then leaned in. Not exactly, but I want you to see this. He motioned for me to follow, and I did. We walked out past the bullpen, past the darkened interview rooms, into the front hall of the station. At night, it feels like a different building entirely, the kind of quiet where you start hearing your own breathing and think it's too loud. Lane unlocked the stairwell door. We climbed one flight, then another. We came out into a low, dusty corridor with a maintenance sign on the wall. I'd only been up there once, years ago. It's the part of the station where the original building meets the addition. A strange, narrow space with drop ceilings and a few sealed rooms that no one uses anymore. "Look up," Lane said quietly. I did, and I froze. The ceiling tiles were all gray with age, speckled with dust. But there were streaks, clean streaks, wider than my hand, like something had slid across them, brushing the dust away in long, uneven lines. They weren't just random. They curved. They doubled back. They stopped directly above where my desk would be if you traced it down through the floors. My throat felt dry. "How fresh is that?" I asked. Lane's flashlight beam ran over the marks again. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Dust still floating up here." We stirred some moving around, but he pointed to one streak that had a small pile of dust collected on one end. "This wasn't here an hour ago." Something about the way he said it, low, measured, made my skin crawl. I stepped closer, craning my neck, but I couldn't see over the tile edges. Just darkness. The kind that swallows the light if you try to shine it in. "You think it's a rat?" I asked, but it sounded weak. Even to me. Lane didn't bother answering. Instead, he pointed out something I'd missed. One of the tiles was sagging. Only slightly, but enough that you could tell the frame had been underweight. Not once. Recently. I thought about the sound I'd been hearing earlier. That slow, deliberate movement. Lane must have read my face because he said, "Yeah, that's why I wanted you to see this yourself." We stood there for a while, not talking. The hallway smelled faintly of old insulation and damp plaster. The air felt stale. And then, just as I was about to turn away, I heard it. A soft shift. Above us. Not loud enough to be an accident. Not sudden enough to be settling wood. It was careful, like something trying not to be noticed. Lane's eyes flicked to mine. We both stood perfectly still, heads tilted back, listening. It moved once, then stopped. I wanted to say something. Anything. But the only thought in my head was the whisper from the earlier call. "She's right above me. The thing is, I don't believe in ghosts. I've taken too many strange calls, been through too many false alarms, to let my brain run wild." But when Lane finally said, "Let's head back down," I didn't argue. We locked the stairwell behind us. Went back to the dispatch room. Neither of us mentioned it again for the rest of the shift. But the feeling didn't leave. It's not just the memory of the sound. It's the way it seemed to follow me. Every so often, I catch myself glancing up at the tiles above my desk. Perfectly still. Perfectly ordinary. And yet, the next night, I came in early. Part of me wanted to check the ceiling before anyone else got here, just to prove it was in my head. The other part, the louder one, told me not to. I sat at my desk, booted up the system, put on my headset. 30 minutes in, I heard it again. The faintest, slowest drag of something shifting its weight. I didn't look up right away. I thought, ignore it. Keep working. But it kept going. Little bursts of movement. Pauses. Like it was waiting for me to notice. Finally, I tilted my head back. The tiles were still there. Still gray. Still speckled with dust. But one of them, I swear, was not perfectly aligned with the rest. Just a fraction off. I told myself maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it had always been like that. The sound stopped, and then I realized something else. The headset cord on my desk was swaying slightly. Not much, but enough that I knew it wasn't from me moving. Something above me had brushed against the wiring that ran up into the ceiling. That was the first time I asked to switch desks. No one questioned it. We all have our quirks on night shifts. I didn't tell anyone. Not until last week. It happened again. Not to me. To Officer Miller. He came into the room during his break, yawning, holding a mug of coffee. He sat in my old seat. Halfway through telling me some story about a traffic stop, he froze. "You hear that?" he asked. I didn't want to, but I listened. It was there. The same dragging, pausing, crawling sound. Miller frowned. "Sounds like someone walking slow up there." Before I could say anything, he stood up and grabbed a chair, dragged it under the spot, stepped up to push on one of the tiles. "Don't," I said too sharply. He stopped, looking down at me. "What? You think something's going to jump out?" He laughed. But it wasn't a real laugh. He pushed the tile aside anyway. I wish I hadn't looked. It wasn't empty. It should have been just beams, wires, insulation. Instead, there was a dark space that seemed too deep, like the inside stretched further than the building should allow. And the dust didn't fall down like normal. It swirled. Miller shined his phone light up there. The beam caught something. Not a face. Not exactly. A pale shape, pressed flat against the beams. Too flat to be lying comfortably, like it had been there for a long time. We both jerked back. Miller let the tile drop. The sound stopped immediately. He hasn't sat at that desk since. Neither have I. And the worst part? When maintenance came 2 days later to inspect, they told us there was no accessible space up there at all. No crawl space. No attic. Just solid structure. They said maybe the dust patterns were from air currents. Maybe the sound was pipes. I didn't argue, but I've started noticing something. Every so often, when the station is quiet, I'll hear it in other parts of the building. Above the hallway, the locker room, even the break room. Always slow, always deliberate, like it's looking for something, or someone. And I think, though I don't know why, it's only a matter of time before it finds them.